Chapter 1193. This is the last time. Let's all have a good time. For the last time, Fatty squinted his eyes, revealing a hint of arrogance and wretchedness. Oh, after more than 12,000 points for 7 consecutive times, it was finally the last time. Everyone present simply did not expect Fatty to have any other changes. It was already quite rare for him to use his ultimate move consecutively. How could there be any changes in the last attack? However, the roar that should have appeared from the last attack suddenly became a wolf's howl that reverberated through the 9 heavens. The Fatty, who had stretched his neck and howled, was suddenly blown up like a balloon. His already large buttocks expanded by more than 3 times. As he howled, immortal light bloomed, and Tao laws surged, crashing into the testing device. Bam! Rumble! The entire testing palace shook violently from the terrifying power that erupted from Fatty's butt. The star cores instantly emitted a bright light, and finally reached 17,835 points. Dumbfounded. Everyone present was dumbfounded. Their mouths were wide open, and they were dumbfounded. Other than the sound of gasping, there was no other noise. Just as Fatty had said in his heart when he used this move, everyone was climaxing. Their thoughts were momentarily sluggish, and they were almost in a dream. 9 restrictions. I'm so close to 9 restrictions. After a long while, Teacher Gu-chan's shocked voice was the first to appear in everyone's ears. Crash. Immediately, the entire testing palace fell into an uproar. Brother Fatty, can you not be so fierce? 9th limit. The basic attack is more than 2,000 points, and the strongest attack is more than 17,000 points. More than 8 times. The divine buttocks technique is really too strong. Brother Fatty, you must teach me. Ao Qian had already rushed to Chun Hao's side and said to Chun Hao with a face full of envy, jealousy, and hatred. Fatty's first 92 attacks were his basic attack, and his average attack was around 2070. And now, Fatty's divine buttocks technique's strongest attack had reached 17,235 points. He was only a little more than 1,000 points away from breaking through to the 9th limit. This was definitely an extremely heaven-defying existence. Even if Ao Qian exposed his full strength, he was destined to be no match for Fatty in terms of attack power. The average damage of 100 hits was 2,939, while the strongest was 17835, which was more than 5 times the average. Fatty's final test result was 5,878. After a full 2 minutes, Fatty's final result was displayed on the screen. However, this result caused countless boos. Teacher Gu-chan. At this moment, the captain of the Carnage Battle team, Su Tao, suddenly soared into the air and shouted at the examiner, Teacher Gu-chan, this kind of calculation is unfair to our Blood Carnage member, Li Yuan. Before Li Yuan came to take the test, he had never participated in any of the sect's basic tests, so he doesn't know the specific calculation method. That's right, Li Yuan didn't need to use any bullsh *T from the 93rd to the 99th attack. It's the law of the divine ability. He only needed to use the last attack to increase his attack power by 8 times, which is 3. 5 times. Insusu added. It's indeed a bit of a loss. That's right, Fatty clearly doesn't know the rules. Following this, many cultivators, both familiar and unfamiliar, complained about Fatty's injustice. If the strongest attack was 5 times the average attack power, the final result would be twice the average. 6 times the average would be 2. 5 times, 7 times the average would be 3 times, and 8 times the average would be 3. 5 times. After 5 times the average attack power, every increment of 1 point would increase by 0. 5. This was definitely a huge difference. If Fatty's 93rd to 99th attacks were all around 2,070, and the last attack remained the same, then his average 100 hits would be 2,228 points, and his strongest 17835 would be more than 8 times the average. His final result would be 7,798 points. This was a difference of nearly 2,000 points. Chun Hao, on the other hand, was stunned by everyone's words. He had never thought that there would be such a thing. Motherf asterisk her. Chunhao had clearly heard what Gu Chan had said before the test. The original version only said that when the strongest attack was 5 times the average attack, the results would be 2 times the average attack, and that was it. This undoubtedly meant that the highest attack power would be 2 times the average attack power. Therefore, Chunhao had done some simple calculations starting from the 93rd attack power. He had maintained his strongest attack power at more than 5 times the average attack power. But from the looks of it now, this was obviously not the case. Sorry, this is my mistake. Before the test started, I thought everyone understood and didn't explain in detail. I really didn't expect an increase of more than 5 times the average attack power. However, the test results have been recorded, and there's no reason to retest. Little fatty, just admit that you're unlucky. Although Gu Chan admitted his mistake, he didn't feel awkward about Chunhao admitting that he was unlucky. It was as if he was talking about something that couldn't be more normal, and there was no need to talk about compensation. What could Chunhao do? He could only admit that he was unlucky. He could only blame himself for knowing too little about the rules, and for being too cocky. He had indeed made everyone excited, but he had stupidly lost nearly 2,000 points. In reality, it wasn't that the test couldn't be retested. The record could be completely refreshed, but Gu Chan and the people in charge of the test couldn't possibly retest Fatty. What had been thought to be Fatty's weakness had become his strength. What would happen to the other strengths, such as speed and endurance? If the 4 geniuses of the direct line were all defeated by Fatty, then Gu Chan, who was in charge of collecting information on the contestants and probing the contestants' abilities, would not be able to escape responsibility. Of course, he wouldn't have to bear any heavy punishment. After all, the appearance of a genius from the direct line to prevent the contestants from getting first place was just the Academy wanting to make the best use of their resources. If someone from the direct line really obtained it, it would prove that the person was indeed strong and worth having. If they could sign a long-term contract, it would be even less of a problem. The test continued. After dozens of people, Ling Feng finally appeared. Ling Feng, whose potential value was ridiculously high, finally obtained a very strong attack power score. However, because Ao Qin and Fatty were in front of him, it didn't cause a stir. There was no helping it. The attack power that Fatty and Ao Qin displayed was really too impressive, especially Fatty. Ling Feng used all his strength, and the final attack power score was 3,984. It was still more than 100 points lower than Ao Qian's 4142. This was within his expectations. After that, every dozens of people, an expert would appear. Without a doubt, at this point, the experts that appeared were all geniuses from the Big Word Academy's direct line. They had been hidden away for many years and hadn't come out. When they came out, they wanted to shine, but they didn't get their wish. Similarly, Fatty Li Yuan and Skinny Monkey Ao Qian stole the limelight. However, the 3 experts that appeared one after the other also had attack power scores of about 4,000, about the same as Ling Feng. They were slightly weaker than Ao Qian, but the gap between them and Fatty was still a bit large. Chapter 1194. Shui Fian, Potential Value 1,000. It was finally the last of the 6,000 people. There was no suspense at all. This female disciple called Shui Fian was definitely one of the 4 direct disciples. Moreover, she was the only female disciple among the 4. The fact that Master Gu Chan had arranged for her to be the last to appear meant that she was probably the strongest of the 4. This was out of everyone's expectations. No one, including Chunhao, had sensed that this woman, who had obviously disguised her appearance and aura, was a direct disciple. Moreover, she was probably the strongest one. Shui Fian's figure did not move at all. She directly turned into a stream of light and flew into the protective barrier of the testing device. Only then did the glimmer of golden light in the depths of Fatty's eyes slowly dissipate. He could not help but rub his chin. There was no other way. After the 3rd of the 4 direct disciples appeared, Chunhao could no longer sense any powerful existences among the remaining 40 to 50 people. However, according to the order of appearance, there should be a final character among the last 40 to 50 people to appear. After all, Master Guchan had arranged the appearance order according to the situation of the auction. An expert would appear every 10 to 100 people. Furthermore, the experts would become stronger and stronger. It did not matter if there was an expert among the experts. At most, the overall situation would become slightly better. However, with Chun Hao's powerful senses, he actually could not sense who the expert was. When there were only 8 people left, Chun Hao finally could not hold back his curiosity and secretly activated his fiery eyes of truth. Once he activated it, the fatty's wretched little eyes could no longer move away from the only female cultivator among the group. Fatty couldn't be blamed for this. This disguised woman didn't even have a primordialine body. Her disguised appearance and aura made it impossible for any man to have any desire. Fatty didn't take it seriously at all. That was why he activated his fiery golden eyes to check. But who knew? There was actually a woman in the world who willingly disguised herself as someone who was 100 times, 1,000 times, or even 10,000 times uglier. This was truly a rare and exotic existence, especially since this woman had lost her primordialine body. She shouldn't be like this. Everyone loves beauty. In a situation where there was no great threat, who would be willing to disguise themselves as an ugly freak? However, this wasn't the reason why Fatty couldn't move his eyes away. This kind of woman could at most make the fatty have the most normal reaction of a man. There would not be any ripples in his heart. What really surprised Chun Hao was that every inch of this woman's skin was engraved with extremely mysterious runes. Her body had become a tool. Moreover, Chun Hao and Hu Meinyang's bodies were much more complete. The densely packed runes should have looked very strange, but as they slowly operated, they seemed to have condensed into a faint mist around their bodies. It was hazy and indistinct. Even Chun Hao's eyes of fire and gold could only see its hazy appearance, making it mysterious and alluring. No wonder I couldn't sense anything unusual about this woman. Her body has become an artifact, and she has condensed so many complicated and profound runes. Her ability to hide her aura must be extremely powerful. Moreover, this should be an inheritance rune. Otherwise, the Daluo Golden Wonderland wouldn't have been able to be condensed. Chun Hao thought to himself. Clang! Just as Chun Hao was thinking, Xue Fian suddenly unsheathed a treasured sword in front of everyone's eyes. Chi! Without any accumulation of power, Xue Fian became one with her sword and slashed out. Ding! Rumble 1810. 1810. 1810. The interval between each of Xue Fian's moves was exactly the same, like a meticulously calculated clock. The error was to the point of microseconds. However, what was more shocking was that the attack value of each of her moves did not fluctuate at all. It was fixed at 1810. Such a value is naturally inferior to that of Chun Hao and Ao Qian. However, each of her attacks was stable at the same number, without any error. It was too shocking. What kind of freakish realm did she have to have such perfect control? She's definitely the strongest of the 4 direct descendants. I didn't expect her to be a woman, and a woman. Yeah, she's very good at hiding her strength. Moreover, she has lost her primordialine body. It's really unexpected. Xue Fian. Her name sounds nice, but her real appearance, I think she's definitely not bad. She must have been occupied, right? Of course. She was placed last by Master Guchan. She's a direct descendant of Dehua University. Of course, it's impossible for her to be promoted through dual cultivation. She must have been occupied. Brother, what do you mean by occupied? Chun Hao, who was once again shocked by Xue Fian's precise attack interval and attack value, could not help but ask when he heard the discussion around him. Brother Fatty, occupied means that someone has been occupied in advance. If the person is not a big shot, he or she must be a genius with more potential than Xue Fian. In short, it's to tell everyone that she's already taken. In the great world of CND, such a situation is called occupied. He or she must have obtained her primordialine body but did not rely on dual cultivation. Xue Fian must be in such a situation. The cultivator beside him said enthusiastically, It was a good thing to be able to befriend a genius like Fatty. It's just as I thought. She's a big shot, a super genius. Chun Hao smiled and shook his head. Yeah. Otherwise, Xue Fian would not be so ugly. This must be requested by the person who occupied the spot. That's why she's so ugly. We don't know how she looks like in real life, but she's definitely a beauty. Hee. Brother Fatty, you're very strong. Xue Fian is obviously the strongest direct descendant of Dehua University. However, her attack power is obviously not as good as yours. That's not necessarily true. If I'm not wrong, I'm going to be surpassed in attack power. Chen Hao's fat face showed a puzzling smile as he looked at Xue Fian, who was in the middle of the test. How is that possible? Xue Fian's basic attack power is only 1,810 points. Brother Fatty's score is 5,878 points. Although it's not the real score, it's impossible for her to surpass you. Brother Fatty's real score is definitely above 7,500 points. Such a precise attack rhythm and attack power. It's obvious that she has perfect control over it. You'll know when she explodes with her final attack. Chun Hao narrowed his eyes and pretended to be mysterious. Chun Hao was telling the truth. Since the opponent's goal was not to waste the strongest resources on a non-direct descendant who could leave at any time, it was impossible for Xue Fian to lose in the beginning. After all, Chun Hao knew that he had already displayed his strength in other aspects. If he relaxed even a little bit, his opponent would not dare to ignore it. Chapter 1195. Xue Fian, on the other hand, was able to control her basic attack power to a certain number without any deviation. It was obvious that she had reserved some of her strength. She would definitely release the strongest attack from the inheritance rune during the final attack, so that her strongest attack power and average attack power would reach the result she wanted. This was the problem that Chun Hao did not know about and did not care about. It was not the case that the stronger the average attack power, the higher the result. It also depended on the difference between the strongest attack power and the average attack power. After a while, Xue Fian had completed 99 attacks and maintained the number at 1810. Buzz. At this moment, Xue Fian's rhythm, which had not changed at all like a precise instrument, finally changed. The moment she retreated, her aura suddenly shook. An endless celestial light and pressure surged out from her body, enveloping the surroundings. F***CK. This woman is probably going to surpass me. Ao Qian became slightly nervous at this moment. He was determined to get the first place. In Ao Qian's heart, Fatty Li Yuan was undoubtedly the strongest competitor for the first place. However, that was the conclusion he had reached after estimating the aura of all the cultivators present. Xue Fian's superb camouflage ability did not catch his attention at all. However, Xue Fian's calmness, composure, and precise control during the first basic test made Ao Qian realize that she was not inferior to Fatty Li Yuan. 6 times is definitely not a problem. When Xue Fian's aura became more and more terrifying and she was about to make the final attack, Ao Qian came to a conclusion in his heart. If the strongest attack power was 6 times the average, then the final result would be 5 times the average. In Ao Qian's opinion, she would definitely surpass him and could even be compared to Fatty Li Yuan. What a powerful camouflage ability. Her inheritance rune? Just like Ao Qian, Ling Feng had made the same mistake. Only when Xue Fian was the only one left did he realize the opponent's powerful disguise ability. At this time, what shocked Ling Feng even more was that Xue Fian had clearly reached her peak state. Just as she was about to attack, an unbelievable scene occurred. Under the disguise, every inch of Xue Fian's skin suddenly blossomed with a resplendent light. Whoosh! At the same time, apart from Chun Hao, who had already seen through the trick, everyone could not help but exclaim in surprise. Rub. 8x. Mother of asterisk cur, fat bro is going to be crushed into pieces. Ao Qian jumped up. 8 times. A small first-rate academy actually had such an existence. Damn it. If I don't get first place, won't I be despised to death by that old fellow? F***CK. Next, I have to go all out. Ling Feng, who had remained calm and confident even when he saw Fatty's attack power skyrocket, truly felt the pressure at this moment. The skinny monkey Ao Qian, the fatty Li Yuan, and the direct descendant genius Xue Fian, each one was stronger than the other. Bang! Chi! Ding! Rumble! Xue Fian's eyes were like two sharp swords. Her lips were tightly shut, and she still did not make any sound. The moment she gathered her strength to its peak, she immediately attacked. A huge pit appeared at the place where her feet had stepped out. She, who had become one with her sword, seemed to have torn through space. There was almost no gap in time as she bombarded the testing device. Asterisk crash. Asterisk the star core lit up and rose rapidly under everyone's shocked and nervous gazes. Finally, it stopped at 15,989. His average attack power was 1,952. The strongest attack power was slightly more than 8 times the average attack power. The final result was 6,832 points. It was slightly more than 1,000 points higher than Chun Hao's. Xue Fian was first in attack power, Chun Hao was second, Ao Qian was third, and Ling Feng was fifth. She was only a few dozen points away from the 4th and 6th place. Everyone knew that Fatty Li Yuan's result could have surpassed Xue Fian's, but everyone had to admit that Xue Fian was first. The reason was simple. Xue Fian's disguised appearance had not changed at all. This also meant that she still had not used her full strength. Otherwise, she would have to reveal her true appearance. Who could determine who was stronger and who was weaker? The second basic test, speed test. Teacher Gu Chan heaved a long sigh of relief when he saw Xue Fian's valiant strength. Without stopping, he immediately announced the start of the second test. Following his words, the attack power tester suddenly blossomed with endless brilliance and disintegrated on its own. The star core that was originally on it suddenly floated out and arranged itself in the barrier. At the same time, runes also condensed in the barrier, forming a completely different space from the previous one. 10 minutes per person. As you go deeper, the number of star cores lit up will increase. The number of star cores you light up in 10 minutes will be your final result. All the attacks you will face will be fake attacks and will not affect you at all. However, you must completely avoid them in order to light up the corresponding star core. Otherwise, you will have to go through the checkpoint again, which will naturally delay your time. You should know that haste makes waste. You should judge for yourself what to do. All right, let's begin. Asterisk buzz. Asterisk the moment teacher Gu Chan finished speaking. A cultivator's name and information appeared at the top of the tower tablet at the end of the star core. The test had officially begun. Brother Fatty, it's useless no matter how carefully you look. The distribution of these star cores will change every time a new cultivator changes. There is no pattern to speak of, and it won't repeat even if you try millions of times. However, brother, I can teach you a technique that will never deviate from the changes. Ao Qian transmitted his voice to Chun Hao from afar. One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. There are a total of 100,000 star cores, corresponding to 100,000 different attack combinations. The 100,000 units are completely unchanged. The only thing that changes is the order in which each unit appears. It's such a simple matter. Fat Bro can figure out even with his butt. Brother Fatty is awesome, especially my butt. However, I will definitely beat you this time. You're not bragging. You have to beat Ling Feng and Xue Fian first. Chun Hao sat cross-legged, his gaze following the cultivators as they moved. The corresponding attacks of each star core, the cultivators' reactions, the way they dodged, their footwork, the time and position of the attacks, and so on were all in Chun Hao's soul perception. Although he was talking to Ao Qian, his mind was not relaxed at all. Xue Fian's appearance, Ling Feng's unfathomable strength, and Ao Qian's bloodline concealment forced Chun how to treat them seriously. Firstly, it was not that simple. He might be concealing something, but Ao Qian, Ling Feng, Xue Fian, and even the other 3 direct descendants were also concealing something. Chun Hao's soul perception was strong, and he had the help of the fiery eyes of truth. However, This did not mean that he could see through everyone. True yuan, soul power, physical body, bloodline, these are just superficial things. There are also things that could not be sensed through aura, such as the opponent's mystique. Chapter 1196. The Great Teleportation Technique isn't omnipotent. Many places test one's reaction speed and evasion speed. It can change a lot in an instant. Chen Hao saw some of the mysteries of the speed test from the examinees. Unfortunately, the highest number of examinees who managed to light up 1096 stars within the 10 minutes limit was only 1096 stars. It was obvious that it would take a long time to understand more. However, Chen Hao wasn't too concerned about this. If he could familiarize himself with it, he would. If he couldn't, it would all depend on his own judgment. It was ever-changing and everyone was different. Even if he knew the corresponding attack combination of each star core, it wouldn't be very useful. What really mattered was one's strength. The Great Teleportation Technique broke the laws of time and space to fly between 2 points. Under the unpredictable attack direction, it was obvious that the Great Teleportation Technique wouldn't work if you wanted to light up the star cores. This undoubtedly increased the difficulty for Chen Hao. The so-called speed test was obviously not as simple as just speed. Time passed by slowly. One examinee appeared every 10 minutes. To the 4 direct experts, Chen Hao, Ao Qian, Ling Feng, and Xue Fian, the results of the examinees before them weren't enough. Among them, Chen Hao was the only one who was watching the test seriously. Moreover, Chen Hao was more focused on the layout of the star cores and their attack methods. Under the laws of time and space, there were only a few hundred examinees left from the 6,000 examinees. The real experts finally began to appear. Ranked 7th in the strength test, one of the 4 direct disciples from the Big Words College broke the previous record. He lit up 1,982 stars and was close to the standard of a top college. After a few dozen rookies, another genius from the direct disciples took the test. Unfortunately, he wasn't as good as the previous one and only lit up 1,924 stars. Of course, this result was only second to the previous genius from the direct disciples, Ling Feng. It's finally my turn. When Ling Feng's name and information appeared on the screen, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he spoke to himself proudly. Whoosh! Without any hesitation, his entire body flashed like lightning. At this moment, the fatty's eyes narrowed. He was obviously much more serious than before. How many stars can this guy light up? Chen Hao thought to himself. At the same time, Ao Qian, Xue Fian, and the others also became alert. Their expressions became slightly serious and expectant. The potential value that Ling Feng had revealed, as well as the results of the strength test, and more importantly, his confidence and arrogance were all existences that they could not ignore. Wong. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The moment Ling Feng stepped into the barrier, his entire body moved as fast as lightning, twisting and turning, leaving behind afterimages as he moved quickly. In an instant, the star nuclei lit up along with Ling Feng's figure. So fast. At this time, even Chen Hao, who had cultivated the great teleportation technique to the extreme, could not help but be amazed. F***CK, so fast? This reaction, this speed, this change in direction, it was too awesome. F***CK, I'm afraid I'll have to go all out to barely be able to do that, right? F***K, 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 your father. While Chen Hao was shocked, Ao Qian began to curse. Xue Fian and another direct descendant who hadn't taken the test frowned. Clearly, they felt the same pressure as Chen Hao and Ao Qian. If I've lost in strength, who can beat me in speed? The Skysteed soaring technique is my best technique, and this is only the first level. If I lose to you, I can find a piece of tofu to kill myself. Ha ha ha. Tremble, second level. Boom. Ling Feng, who was twisting and turning rapidly, stroked his bangs and laughed in his heart. At this time, his body shook, and his speed increased by another level. F***CK. It can't be? He can still increase his speed. F***CK. He's really amazing. Ao Qian, one of the 4 direct descendants who had not taken the test, Shui-Fian, Chun Hao, and all the other cultivators present, including Gu Chan, were no exception. They were indeed trembling. In just a short minute, Ling Feng had lit up 459 star cores at his original speed. This was already very shocking, at least twice as fast as any of the previous ones. However, at this time, this guy's speed of lighting up star cores did not decrease. Instead, it suddenly increased. 3rd level. At the beginning of the 3rd minute, Ling Feng went crazy again. But this time, he did not increase the speed of lighting up the star nuclei and only maintained his original speed. But to be able to do this, it was absolutely terrifying. After all, his current speed was already extremely terrifying. As time passed, the Dao mark attacks and other mechanisms would become more and more powerful. Under normal circumstances, the lighting speed would slow down. It's a pity that the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland can only be cultivated to the 3rd level. Otherwise, this brother will definitely make all of you orgasm together. Chi. Ling Feng pushed himself to the limit, and it could be said that he did not hold back in terms of speed. There was no other way. He had already lost in terms of attack power, and now he had to turn around. Ling Feng believed that the sky-steed soaring technique was not inferior to the great teleportation technique, but was more suitable for speed testing. It was enough for him to obtain 1st place in the speed test. That was indeed the case. Ling Feng lit up 4,123 star nuclei in 10 minutes. Compared to the 2 direct descendant geniuses who had been tested before, it was more than double. Ao Qian used all his strength and did not hold back. He was just short of revealing his true bloodline inheritance, but he only managed to obtain 3,813 star nuclei. Chun Hao, who was disguised as a fatty, swung his huge but into 8 pieces. Although it caused a commotion, he still lost to Ling Feng in the end, lighting up 4,012 stones. The last person to test, Shui-Fian, shocked Chun Hao and the others once again. She actually lost to Fatty with a difference of 1 point. She did not reveal her true identity, and under the disguise of her aura, she obtained this result. This was enough to prove that Shui-Fian could definitely surpass Fatty. And her calm expression, as though she did not care about this result at all, was obviously filled with confidence. On the other hand, Ao Qian was extremely depressed as he sank into torment. He had just arrived at Huahua Institute, and he had already revealed his strongest trump card. Wasn't that too embarrassing? But if he did not reveal it, how could he fight for 1st place? If he did not obtain the top 10 treatment this year, it would be a very embarrassing matter. But if his true identity was revealed, he would lose even more face in the clan. At the same time, Ling Feng, who looked like he did not care, was not as calm as he looked. The strength that Fatty and Shui-Fian displayed made him feel immense pressure. He had even used the sky-steed soaring technique without holding back, but he only obtained a slight advantage and obtained 1st place in speed. Shui-Fian, who had disguised herself, was actually under a lot of pressure as well. It was just that she had always been expressionless. The only one who could be considered calm was Chun Hao. Such an outcome was both within and outside of his expectations. What he expected was that he had already determined that everyone was hiding something. What he did not expect was that the other party had hidden so much that even his speed that he was so confident in had lost. Chapter 1197. The last part of the foundation test is the endurance test. It's very simple. All testers will enter at the same time. The longer you last, the better your results will be. Whoever collapses last will be first. I'll give you 3 days to prepare and adjust to your best condition. This is a test of the physical body and soul. It's also the most important of the 3 foundation tests. Master Gu Chan's voice reverberated throughout the entire testing palace. The endurance test was a double test of the physical body and soul. The stronger the physical body and soul, the better the results. The strength of the soul did not just refer to the power of the soul. The most important thing was one's state of mind, willpower, and other ability to withstand pressure. These all originated from the soul. Compared to attack power and speed, which could be used to cast the law of the divine ability, the test was undoubtedly more fundamental and important. The stronger the endurance of the physical body and soul, the stronger the physical body and soul. This was the foundation of a cultivator and accounted for 40% of the results of the foundation test. Attack power and speed accounted for 30% respectively. Endurance. The first place will still be mine. Ling Feng looked confidently at Fatty, Xue Fian, and Ao Qian before slowly closing his eyes. To be able to cultivate the great change technique to the extreme, his physical body was naturally extremely strong. As for his soul endurance, it was needless to say. He had been cultivating under the old man's inhumane torture since he was young. His state of mind had long reached the state of being as kind as water, and his willpower was as strong as a rock. This was something that he was more confident in than the soaring Pegasus technique. In Ling Feng's opinion, the biggest competitors were Fatty, Xue Fian, and Ao Qian. The other prodigies had passed the test twice and were ignored by Ling Feng. Among the three of them, he was already aware of Fatty's situation. The great change technique and the special ability of his eyes had placed second in the previous two tests. His attack power, especially, should be number one. He was definitely one of the strongest opponents. Xue Fian was also unfathomable. She had not revealed her true form until now, so naturally, she had not revealed her true strength. Ao Qian, who had concealed his aura, was the same. He and Fatty both used the great change technique. If they did not reveal their true forms, it would not affect their strength. Ling Feng did not know if Fatty was still hiding anything. He only knew that he had to treat this seriously. Otherwise, he would be despised to death by the old man. Go all out. Go all out. I don't believe that I won't be able to defeat you without revealing my identity. Ao Qian's fighting spirit soared as he howled in his mind. Then, he focused his mind and entered a state of cultivation. In 3 days, he had to adjust himself to his strongest state. After Xue Fian heard Master Gu Chan's announcement, she did not have any expression at all and closed her eyes. Her disguise was too ordinary and did not have any beauty. Although the surrounding cultivators knew that this was definitely a super invincible genius beauty who had been occupied, they did not have the slightest interest in seeing this appearance. It'll be easier if they take the test together. We'll play it by ear. When Shenhao heard teacher Gu Chan's explanation, he was in a good mood. Taking the test together meant that he did not have to expose too much in the dark. If he exposed too little, he might lose. If he exposed too much, it would be a waste. After all, he still hadn't gotten first place, so it was impossible for him to be arranged to be the last. But now, there was no such concern. No matter who it is, I, Lord Fatty, am still a little bit stronger than you. First place is mine. Asterisk crash. Asterisk. Her speed is also very ordinary. It's not even at the average standard. Yeah, her attack power is rubbish, her speed is rubbish, and her potential value is still below the baseline. The key is that her life aura is so old. She should be outstanding in other aspects, but that's obviously not the case. How could such a person be specially recruited? Isn't that obvious? That youthful appearance, that figure, and that primordialine body. It's not strange for her to be specially recruited, right? Many big shots are interested in this type of person. That's true. Brothers, let's communicate telepathically so that we won't be heard. Who knows which big shot took a fancy to her? Asterisk chi. Asterisk under the space-time laws. More than a month ago, when Shunhao's Daluo Golden Wonderland had just started the speed test, the Grand Miss Supremacy Realm area had also started the speed test around the same time. At this moment, the first person to appear was Si Xian, who had changed her name to Chen Si. Her gaze was as sharp as a sword, and her expression was solemn. Her aura was clearly at its peak, and she was giving it her all. However, just as the test began, there were countless discussions from the crowd. Although this was within Si Xian's expectations, when she actually faced it, she still couldn't accept it. In the chaotic, boundless universe, she was a proud daughter of the heavens, a legendary existence. However, when she came here, she became the target of ridicule and ridicule. When she first stepped into the assessment square, Everyone saw her stunning appearance and sensed her life aura. They all thought that Si Xian, who had a very old life aura, must be very strong in other aspects. During the newcomers' arena battle, Si Xian's performance was very poor, and no one thought much of it, thinking that this stunning beauty was deliberately hiding her strength. However, after the foundation test began and everyone saw Si Xian's performance in the first attack power test, they didn't think so. Now, Si Xian's performance was speed. Although the results weren't out yet, everyone could tell that this result was at least rubbish to them. How could such a person be specially recruited? Naturally, it was attributed to Si Xian's stunning appearance that didn't age. When Si Xian heard such discussions after the attack power test, she was so depressed that she wanted to vomit blood. However, she really did her best. Just like the speed test now, she used all her strength without holding back, but in the eyes of everyone, it was still very poor. Her potential value was a few points short of the benchmark of a first-rate academy. In fact, it wasn't Si Xian's true result. At least it wasn't her true result. This was because her age evaluation was based on her being much younger than the average Hongmeng Supreme Being. If it was her true age, her potential value would be the same as Chun Hao's in her initial estimation. At most, she would barely reach the benchmark of a second-rate academy. Entering a third-rate academy would be the most normal. But now, Si Xian had entered a first-rate academy, skipping 2 grades. Facing these geniuses, how could she compete? Pear Mountain was huge. The pressure and psychological pressure she had never felt before made Si Xian even more eager to improve herself. She didn't want to be despised by others, looked down upon by others, and wrongly accused of relying on the most useless method of being specially recruited. 642 points. Really rubbish. You can't even reach the benchmark of 1,000 points. Si Xian used all her strength and only lit up 642 points in the speed test. She was already very good, right? But in the eyes of the people around her, it was rubbish. Si Xian felt so wrong that she wanted to cry. Was it wrong to follow that damn fatty into a first-rate academy? That damn fatty situation should be much better. According to Master's estimation, he should be a relatively strong existence in a first-rate academy. And this is based on the time when he just stepped into the great world of CND. Si Xian simply blocked her hearing and closed her eyes to adjust herself. She couldn't help but think of Chun Hao. Chapter 1198. Generally, cultivators from the vast thousand domains would improve very quickly after entering the great world of CND for the first time. According to Yilan's judgment, Chun Hao, who was abnormally powerful, would be considered a genius in a first-rate academy even when he had just entered the great world of CND. He would only need some time to adapt, and he would have no problem entering a top-notch academy. There was also something that Yilan had not mentioned to Chun Hao: the qualifications to walk the path of the Celestial Emperor. Phew! Si Xian shook her head slightly and heaved a long sigh in her heart. This was a world where true geniuses gathered. If she had come tens of millions of years earlier, she might have had a very strong competitive edge. Now, however, perhaps following Chun Hao to a first-rate academy was a mistake. This was not because Si Xian felt inferior, but because the gap between them was too big. It was not something that she could catch up to even if she worked hard. In such an environment, apart from the academy's most basic cultivation conditions, it would be difficult for her to even take a step forward. Although I've just entered and there's still a lot of room for improvement, it's still far from enough. I'll think about it after the assessment. After separating from Chun Hao, Si Xian finally realized the gap between herself and the disciples of first-rate academies as she faced the contemptuous and mocking gazes and words. She had said that she would not affect Chun Hao, but if she insisted on being with Chun Hao now, there would be a great impact. There was no doubt about that. Although she thought that after leaving Chun Hao, she would be very lonely and lost in this completely unfamiliar world. However, she had to consider this. Moreover, Chun Hao is only in the Daluo Golden Wonderland now. At most, he would have to go to the Hongmeng domain in a few thousand years. They would have to separate in the end. Begin. 5 days after Si Xian began the last test, the endurance test, Shenhao also began. The cultivators who were on standby immediately turned into streams of light and rushed into the enchantment seal. When everyone was in position and in their respective test areas, a majestic and terrifying pressure of Tao, law, suddenly burst out, enveloping the entire test space. Achi, in Hongling's sovereign area, which had been going on for 5 days under the space-time laws, the first cultivator let out a horrified scream. He was the first to be eliminated. In the endurance test, once a cultivator lost control of their mind and lost their true self, or if their physical body was about to collapse, they would be ejected from the test area by the power of the spatial laws, ending the test. This was a limit that was set according to the cultivator's essence, spirit, blood, and chi. It was absolutely accurate, and not only could it truly measure the cultivator's tolerance limit, it could also protect the cultivator from harm. It's actually not Shin-Si. 5 days later, when the first cultivator was eliminated, many cultivators were already on the verge of elimination. After all, most of the cultivators present were quite close to each other in terms of strength. However, what surprised many cultivators was that it wasn't Si Xian. In their estimation, Chun-Si's attack power and speed were trash, so his endurance must be the worst as well. However, after persevering for 5 days, the first person to be eliminated was not Shin-Si. The few experts who were still at ease looked at Si Xian from afar with a hint of surprise in their eyes. This was because, at this moment, regardless of whether it was Si Xian's physical body or soul, she appeared extremely calm. She did not show any signs of being unable to endure the increasingly heavy and terrifying pressure. Not even the slightest bit of pain appeared on her beautiful face that did not age. Strange, her attack power and speed are so weak, and her endurance is the best indicator of a cultivator's strength and potential. She's actually so strong? On the 7th day, when more than 3,000 people had been eliminated, everyone was truly surprised by Si Xian's calm expression. At this moment, even the cultivators who had shown great strength in the first 2 tests more or less showed a hint of pain, but Si Xian was still as calm as ever. Strange, what's going on? Si Xian was also puzzled. At this moment, Si Xian only felt a little pain, and it didn't affect her foundation at all. However, more than 3,000 people had been eliminated one after another. Moreover, even the genius disciples who had shown great strength in the first 2 tests showed a pained expression at this moment. Clearly, they weren't as relaxed as her. This made Si Xian very puzzled. Could it be that her endurance was very strong? Not to mention others who didn't believe it. Even Si Xian herself didn't believe it. Endurance was the double strength of the physical body and soul. It was the most fundamental thing. If one's speed and attack power were weak, one's physical body and soul couldn't be very strong. Naturally, one's endurance wouldn't be strong either. When the pressure marks were on my body, I still felt it, but it weakened instantly. Could it be? Could it be? Si Xian pondered and suddenly thought of a special existence in the great world in her mind. Mountain of corpses and sea of blood. It was engraved with Chun Hao's highest understanding of the 3 great immortal sutras and condensed the strongest emotions of countless cultivators on the verge of death. At the same time, when Chun Hao took Qin Shui and the others back after stepping out of the ancient chaos void, he gave Si Xian an unknown amount of terrifying emotional power to integrate into the mountain of corpses and sea of blood. That emotional power was the god's thought energy that Chun had destroyed and devoured in the ancient chaos void. It's really it. After Si Xian carefully sensed it, she was shocked to find that the mountain of corpses and sea of blood was actually devouring the pressure of the Tao marks on her body on its own when she opened her mind. The churning blood, the piles of white bones, and the Tao marks of the 3 great immortal sutras were all operating on their own at this time. Terrifying emotional power filled it, as if it had given birth to its own consciousness, controlling the mountain of corpses and sea of blood to devour the pressure of the Tao marks on her body. How could this be? Could it be? Si Xian was truly shocked. If this mountain of corpses and sea of blood were to give birth to its own consciousness, wouldn't it be terrifying? Cixin immediately thought of the soul of all things, Lu Hui. She definitely didn't think that she and Chun Hao, who had condensed the mountain of corpses and sea of blood, had the ability to give birth to its own consciousness. That was simply impossible. Their cultivation realm was the biggest restriction. However, the soul of all things and the reincarnation of an immortal emperor, Lu Hui didn't have such a restriction. I don't feel anything, while Cixin was shocked on the other side. Chun Hao, who had been testing for 2 days, felt the pressure of the entire test space getting stronger and stronger. It was very boring. At most, he felt that the heaven and earth spirit chi was getting denser and denser. This little bit of pressure really didn't make him feel anything. Passing the immortal Sutra sacred land, experiencing thousands of years of experience in the ancient chaos void, and experiencing countless powerful gods' thoughts, Chun Hao didn't feel anything at all for the past 2 days. At most, it was the level of scratching an itch. Chapter 1199. Similarly, when Chun Hao's endurance test had been going on for about 5 days, some cultivators began to be eliminated one after another. On the 7th day, almost half of them had been eliminated. On the 8th day, there were only 4 people left: Chun Hao, Ao Qian, Ling Feng, and Xue Fian. At this time, Cixin's test had been going on for 13 days. In the entire testing space, there were only Cixin and another genius who had won first place in the first 2 basic tests. This situation had been going on for a day. The others were all eliminated on the 12th day. By now, many cultivators who had looked down on Cixin for having no other advantages other than her beauty had shut up obediently, although they still did not know why Cixin's attack power and speed test results were so bad. Although they still did not understand. After all, a strong endurance meant that one's body, soul, state of mind, and will were very strong. Then, one's attack power and speed should not be bad. With Cixin's endurance as a top genius, she should not have been so bad in the first 2 tests. Buzz. Chi. On the 13th day, Cixin could not hold on any longer and was ejected from the testing space. However, less than a minute after Cixin was eliminated, another cultivator who was obviously in pain was also ejected. Obviously, after sensing that Cixin was eliminated, this cultivator could not hold on any longer and was ejected from the testing space. This made Cixin very happy, because although this test was fake, it was only the first few days. When she found out that it was caused by the mountain of corpses and blood sea, she directly sealed the space in her mind and blocked the mountain of corpses and blood sea's active devouring. From then on, it was her own test. However, she had held on until now. She was second only to the strongest cultivator, who had obviously reached his limit as well. Without a doubt, this gave Cixin a lot of confidence. She was not bad. It was just that she needed some time to uncover her real potential that she had not been able to use. It's been 13 days, she can really hold on. Oh, Qian gritted his teeth and glanced at Chun Hao, Ling Feng, and Xue Fian. Since the 11th day, only the 4 of them were left. Now, it had been 13 days, and none of them had been eliminated. What made Ao Qian even more anxious was that Brother Fatty, Ling Feng, and Xue Fian seemed to be very calm. Under the increasingly terrifying coercion and Dao laws, the 3 of them did not show any signs of pain. This was too freakish. One had to know that under normal circumstances, 13 days was the limit of all previous testers. After all, as long as others couldn't hold on, those geniuses who could still hold on wouldn't be able to hold on either. But this time, the 4 of them were actually evenly matched. Mother of asterisk her, I'm afraid I can't take it anymore. Under the terrifying pressure of the Dao mark, Ao Qian felt that he was about to collapse. His mind was not functioning properly. This feeling was clearly on the verge of collapse. At this point, unless he released the sealed bloodline origin power, the first one to be eliminated would be him. There's still hope. It's better not to expose it now. After all, this is only the basic test, and it only accounts for 30% of the total score. Buzz. When this thought appeared, Ao Qian's consciousness suddenly blurred, and he was immediately ejected out of the testing area uncontrollably. Amazing. Ao Qian is amazing. 13 days and 7 hours. As far as I know, this is almost the result of the first place in the comprehension test of the University of Dahua. The moment A.O. Qian was ejected, a few people from the Carnage Battle team quickly went to A.O. Qian's side and praised him sincerely. Damn, Brother Fatty is still the best. Brother Fatty really hides his strength. He's too pretentious. His potential value is less than 1,000, but he's stronger than me in every aspect. A.O. Qian said in a conflicted manner. This was the truth. Unless he exposed everything, he really couldn't compare to Fatty, who was a pretentious person. Very strong, very strong. Ha! With you and Brother Fatty, our Carnage Battle team will definitely be famous in the University of Dahua and even first-rate schools. Brother A.O., do you think Brother Fatty can get first place this time? I think Brother Fatty's expression is the most relaxed. It's hard to say. Ling Feng looks very pretentious. I can faintly feel that he's hiding his strength very deeply. Xue Fian is the direct prodigy of the University of Dahua. As for who she is, it's hard to guess. Look at the three of them. Which one of them isn't calm? Damn it. I'll show you how strong I am in the ranking competition. A.O. Qian said as he clenched his fists. His fighting spirit was rising. This Fatty really knows how to act. I can't hold on any longer. How can he be stronger than me? Xue Fian is getting more and more difficult to understand. Damn it. Ling Feng, who was sitting cross-legged, still had a faint smile on his face. However, traces of blood had begun to seep out of his pores. It was obvious that his physical body was about to reach its limit. However, his tyrannical soul, state of mind, and willpower were still agile. At this moment, Fatty's face also had traces of blood. However, his eyes were agile and he was extremely relaxed. From time to time, he would glance at Ling Feng and Xue Fian. The only one who didn't change was Xue Fian. She had disguised her appearance and aura. Until now, she hadn't even revealed her true body. Only the runes were becoming brighter and brighter. Her physical body had become an artifact. Moreover, it was an inheritance rune. Undoubtedly, it was extremely terrifying. Chen Hao and Ling Feng were both clear about this. Damn it, am I going to lose to the two of them? Ling Feng felt more and more depressed as he sensed Chen Hao and Xue Fian's aura. His soul, state of mind, and willpower were all fine. The only problem was that his physical body was about to collapse. He had never thought of this before. After all, he had cultivated the great change art to its ultimate state. However, although Fatty was also bleeding, he seemed to be in a better state. As for Xue Fian, who had become an artifact with her physical body, Ling Feng didn't know how to judge. Buzz. Chi. However, at this moment, Xue Fian, who was extremely calm and had not shown any signs of pain from the beginning until now, was directly ejected from the test space without any warning. This made Ling Feng and Chen Hao slightly stunned. The other cultivators also exclaimed in confusion. Could it be that her soul can't take it anymore? Her control is too strong. Until the end, her expression didn't change at all. Chen Hao couldn't help but exclaim, damn it. Buzz. Chi. While Ling Feng was shocked by Xue Fian, he accidentally lost control of his physical body and primordial qi. Terrifying Tao mark pressure directly invaded his internal organs. At this moment, Ling Feng cursed out loud. Ha ha! You let me win! You let me win! However, Chen Hao stood up and laughed. With a twist of his fat butt, he flew out of the testing space. Chapter 1200. Brother Fatty, you shouldn't have come out. As soon as Chen Hao stepped out of the testing space, several members of the Carnage Battle team spoke to him telepathically. I'm already in first place. What's the point of staying in there? Chen Hao said nonchalantly. Brother Fatty, it's no use. The real deciding factor is your test results. The ranking is useless. Ranking is useless? The higher the ranking, the better the overall score. However, the real deciding factor is the attack power, speed, and endurance. The score is calculated according to the ratio of 30, 30, and 40. The final score of the 3 basic tests is based on the Daluo Golden Wonderland's basic tests. For example, if the attack power and speed are both 10,000 points, 30 points is the full score. Our score is based on a ratio of attack power, speed, and 10,000 points. The endurance score is 40 points, and we have to endure for 20 days. Damn, I understand now. Before Su Tao could finish his explanation, Chen Hao interrupted him speechlessly. He didn't even think about how the final score of the basic test was calculated. He thought that the final score would be determined according to the rankings of the 3 tests and their actual combat power. He didn't expect that it would be related to the test records of the great world of CND. Xuefian is definitely in first place in the basic tests. Chen Hao thought to himself. Xuefian was ahead of him in terms of attack power, but the difference in speed was negligible. Similarly, there was no difference in endurance. Both of them finished within a minute, so there was no difference at all. The only difference was the ranking. The results in just 2 minutes proved Chen Hao's prediction. First place, Xuefian 59. 1 points, attack power, 20. 5 speed, 12. 0 endurance, 26. 6 second place, Chen Hao 56. 2 points, attack power, 17. 6 speed, 12. 0 endurance, 26. 6 third place, Ling Feng 51. 0 points, attack power, 12. 0 speed, 12. 4 endurance, 26. 6 fourth place, Ao Qian 50. 4 points, attack power, 12. 4 speed, 11. 4 endurance, 26. 6 the gap between Xuefian's attack power allowed her to take the first place. It couldn't be helped. Chen Hao's ranking was higher than Xuefian's in both speed and endurance. However, the difference in the number of star cores lit up in the speed test was only 0.003 points, so the difference was negligible. As for endurance, including Ao Qian, the 4 of them didn't exceed 10 minutes. It was also a difference that couldn't be reflected by the decimal point. Chen Hao was as fast as Xuefian. Chen Hao's loss was due to his lack of attack power. Even though Chen Hao's attack power had been wronged, on a scale of 100, he can't even get 60 points. That's too weak. Looking at the final results, Chen Hao said with a pained expression, Fatty, this result is already one of the best in the top schools, not to mention the Dahua school. Those who can get 70 points and above are definitely geniuses in the top schools. Those who can get 80 points and above in the great world of CND are definitely less than 10,000 people in the Daluo Golden Wonderland. Those who could get 90 points and above are almost extinct. It's said that there hasn't been a single person who can get full marks since ancient times. It's that hard? Then why set such a high standard? This score is too shocking. Hearing Su Tao's words, Chen Hao said, Brother Fatty, if you understand the rules, then it's definitely over 60 points. You can increase your attack power by 4 points. Brother Fatty, how long can you last in the endurance test? Ao Qian couldn't help but ask. It's hard to say. When I came out, I was almost there. At most, I could last this long. Chen Hao looked at Ao Qian and narrowed his eyes. There was a proud smile on his fat face. He stretched out 3 fingers, then 5. 3 to 5 hours? Ao Qian asked. Fatty shook his head. 3 to 5 hours. Fatty shook his head again. F***CK. 3 to 5 minutes. Brother Fatty, between us brothers, who doesn't know that you're hiding your strength? Moreover, looking at how relaxed you were, how could you only last for 3 to 5 minutes? Hearing Ao Qian's words, Chen Hao was stunned. F***CK. This IQ, I said 3 to 5 days. That's already very conservative. I don't dare to say anything else, but in terms of endurance, I can definitely last until 20 days. After all, I haven't felt anything from the test till now. Did I say 3 to 5 minutes? God, 3 to 5 days. Fatty stretched out his 5 fingers and looked at Ao Qian with disdain. Enough, Brother Fatty, you can't brag like that. We've already tested for 13 days. Not to mention 5 days. Even 3 days is more than 16 days. Even the top geniuses in top schools wouldn't be able to do this. Don't think about hurting my confidence. Brother Fatty, don't mind the following ranking. I'll definitely beat you. Ha ha. F asterisk CK. Chun Hao couldn't be bothered to say more. Not to mention Ao Chien, it seemed like the Carnage Blood and the others had the same thought. If he spoke the truth, no one would believe him. Once again, Chun Hao was shocked. What also made Chun Hao realize was that the so-called ranking competition wasn't the most direct confrontation between cultivators, but a test. In fact, it wasn't any different from the 3 basic tests. It was just a test of real combat strength. The test method was very simple. It was to enter the combat strength testing tower. Once a cultivator entered, all of their aura would be simulated and they would enter a realistic illusion. The so-called realistic illusion was a simulated environment that was completely similar to the outside world. It was similar to the fairyland space that the captain of the Carnage Blood Battle team mentioned previously. However, it was simplified and used specifically to test one's combat strength. There are a total of 10 stages. In each stage, there will be 1,000 simulated cultivators with similar strength, but different abilities and specialties. Killing one will give you 1 point. After killing all of them, you'll enter the next stage. Alright, the order of the test will start from the last in the basic test. Teacher Gu Chan quickly announced the start of the test. There is a 9-point difference in the basic test. The basic test accounts for 30% of the total score, which is equivalent to a difference of 7 points. The combat strength test accounts for 40% of the total score. In other words, I have to surpass 7 points in order to catch up with Xuefian. 7 points is equivalent to 700 simulated cultivators. I have to kill at least 700 more simulated cultivators than Xuefian to catch up. Damn, this is a little too big. First place, damn it, I might explode. Ao Qian's mind spun rapidly as he calculated the difference between himself and Xuefian, who was temporarily first. No matter how high one's potential value was, it wasn't calculated. After all, there were direct disciples with 1,000 points, as well as cultivators who weren't satisfied with their potential value and wanted to retake the test. Therefore, the temporary ranking was only based on the results of the basic test. However, although Xuefian was first and gave Ao Qian a lot of pressure, the real first place was Fatty. The combat strength test was probably even higher. If Ao Qian didn't expose his bloodline aura, his chances of winning were very small. At the same time, Ling Feng also calculated the difference between him and Xuefian. He had to kill more than 600 simulated cultivators to catch up. Similarly, Fatty's threat was no less than Xuefian's. Chapter 1201. When the first cultivator started the assessment, an image of the cultivator in the illusory reality appeared on the combat power tower. The entire battle process was clearly displayed before everyone's eyes. Unfortunately, he was eliminated by the simulated cultivator as soon as he stepped into the second stage. After that, hundreds of people remained at the second stage. At most, they killed 100 or so simulated cultivators before being eliminated. Their score was only a little more than 1,000 points. Although there were occasional anomalies, most of the combat power assessment points were directly proportional to the basic test results. The simulated cultivators in the second stage are twice as strong as those in the first stage. The simulated cultivators in the third stage are twice as strong as those in the second stage, and so on. This method of enhancement is very abnormal. Those who can enter the third stage in a first-rate academy are very strong, even if they don't get a single point in the third stage. The second stage is basically the limit of most of the cultivators in first-rate academies. Very few can enter the third stage, and only a handful can enter the fourth stage. Due to Fatty's ignorance of the great world of C&D, the members of the Carnage Battle Team had become Chun Hao's instructor. Fatty bro, take a look. Although the strength of the 1,000 simulated cultivators in each stage is about the same, there is a huge difference in the attacking methods and other aspects that they specialize in. This could be ignored if your absolute strength is strong enough. But when the strength is about the same, you have to play to your strengths and avoid your weaknesses. Recognize your own advantages and kill the simulated cultivators that you can counter first. This way, you can kill a lot more. Yes. Look, this simulated cultivator had no problem in the first stage. For the second stage, he specifically chose the area where the simulated cultivators were slow and had strong attacks. This is because his speed is his advantage. He can handle it with ease. Yes, I understand. Chunhao naturally had to acknowledge his enthusiastic teammates. However, he could understand their long-winded analysis, even if he used his but to think. The combat power assessment has also started for the newcomers. The Great Luo Golden Immortal Realm and Grand Mist Supremacy Realm cultivators in front of the Great Luo Golden Immortal Realm and Grand Mist Supremacy Realm ranking pagoda steels exclaimed when they saw the new names appear. In the decennial rookie assessment, once a rookie completed the combat strength test and reached a basic value of 1,000, their name would appear on the ranking board. However, most of them were at the bottom of the rankings because the rankings were based on overall strength. The overall strength ranking consisted of 3 factors: combat power, potential, and contribution. The results of the 3 basic tests were not included. Combat power was basically a reflection of the 3 basic tests. At this moment, other than the combat strength value, the newcomer's potential value was still in a pending state, and his contribution value was 0. I heard that there are 2 experts in this year's Daluo Golden Wonderland. One of them is called Ling Feng, and his exposed potential value is around 2,300. He is definitely qualified to enter a top academy, and this is before he came to Dahua Academy. There's also one who defeated Wan Yishui in the arena. It can't be? Wan Yishui is one of the top experts in our Daluo Golden Wonderland. What do you mean by 300? Look again. He had actually reached 213. I clearly remember that it was more than 300. Previously, it was indeed more than 300. To be precise, it was 324. But the day before yesterday, when Yishui returned from his training, turned in the mission, and retested his combat strength. Look, just his combat strength increased by more than 800 points. With the increase in his contribution value, he directly rose by more than 100 ranks. Such rapid improvement is the result of his crazy hard work after being defeated by a newcomer. Who defeated him? It's indeed a very embarrassing thing. A fatty called Li Yuan. He just wait and see. Wan Yishui returned at this time, naturally to get back at him. He Ming, who chased Wan Yishui for more than 3,000 years without success, said that he would wait for fatty Li Yuan to come out and challenge him to help Wan Yishui vent her anger. It said that fatty Li Yuan was rather wretched and didn't rely on his real combat strength to rise to Wan Yishui's rank. Furthermore, he even took liberties. Why? HM? The cultivator who was speaking saw his companion winking at him and asked in confusion. But just as he said the word, why, he suddenly turned his head to the right. Cough, cough. Not far away, Wan Yishui sat cross-legged, his eyes cold. Beside Wan Yishui were He Ming and other members of the same team. He Ming, I'm not someone who's looking for trouble. I'm definitely forced to challenge him. A figure beside He Ming said directly. You want to die? The ashen-faced He Ming finally raised his hand and pointed at the cultivator who was talking about him, and Wan Yishui, roaring. Many of the cultivators who were also talking immediately shut their mouths. There was never a lack of cultivators at the ranking pagoda. Under normal circumstances, cultivators who had just completed a mission would come here. There were also cultivators who had retested their combat strength or potential value, and specially came here to see the change in their ranking. And now, during the once-in-a-decade newcomer assessment, there were also many cultivators who specially came to see the situation of the newcomers. They were looking for Dao companions, battle team members, and so on. Wan Yishui and He Ming were obviously here to see the situation of the newcomer assessment, or it could be said that they were waiting for the fatty to come out. Cough, cough. Sorry. I've only heard rumors. Brother He, I'm sorry. Scram. Goodbye. The person who spoke hurriedly left in a sorry state. Although in the academy, He Ming didn't dare to do anything to him, and couldn't do anything to him, he didn't dare to offend an expert like Himing. There were many ways to mess with him. Ishui, you heard it too. Even if you can easily bully that damn fatty, you'll still get yourself into trouble. Why don't you let me help you vent your anger? After seeing the other person leave dejectedly, Himing couldn't flare up. He turned to look at Wan Ishui, who was sitting cross-legged, and transmitted his voice. Himing, I said that you don't need to care about my matters. That damn fatty, I'll definitely teach him a lesson with my own hands. Wan Ishui frowned and said, Also, Himing, I won't be renewing my contract with the battle team and Big Words Academy. After the Millennium Academy ranking competition, I'll leave. I know. Me too. When the time comes, let's go to the Hongmeng region together. Himing, why don't you understand what I mean? Do you have to say it directly? You don't have to say it, I understand. But isn't it too early to say it now? You didn't accept me before, nor did you reject me. Are you sure that I won't be as good as you in the future? I think it's too early. When the time comes, we'll enter the Hongmeng region together and make a decision after we come out. After all, whether it's me or our battle team, we've been together for so long. When we enter the Hongmeng region, there are no laws to protect us. How can we do it without a partner? What do you think? Don't worry, I won't force you. We'll be friends for the time being, just like the others, Himing said. Wan Ishui looked at Himing and finally nodded. This batch of cultivators is very strong, so strong. There's still 400 people, and their combat power is close to 2,000. How can we not know the experts? As a whole, they're definitely the strongest batch in tens of thousands of years. Chapter 1202. Based on what we know, the expert is at least comparable to Wan Ishui. That's true. It's said that Li Yuan, who defeated Wan Ishui, was specially recruited by the pavilion master of the true martial pavilion. His soul and state of mind are very strong, and he cultivated the great teleportation technique to the peak of the Daluo Golden Wonderland. He completely relied on his speed and state of mind to exhaust Wan Ishui to death, not his battle strength. That's what the rumors say. However, if an expert like Wan Ishui could be controlled by him and exhaust his energy, would he be as simple as he seems? That's true. Let's see. The results will be out soon. We only need to look at Li Yuan's battle strength and his ranking among the newcomers to know the situation of this batch. Following the progress of Chun Hao and the others' battle strength test, the cultivators in front of the Daluo Golden Wonderland's ranking tower in the plaza outside the University of Dahua's testing center couldn't help but buzz in discussion. When there were only 400 cultivators left, the battle strength of the testers was already close to 2,000 points. This also meant that the next 400 people would all be existences with more than 2,000 points. After all, everyone knew that the order of the test was based on the results of the basic test from the weakest to the strongest. 400 existences with a battle strength of more than 2,000 points. In terms of overall quality, this batch was definitely a batch that Dahua Academy had not seen in 10,000 years. If a few more top experts appeared, it would be even more shocking. 1994, 2003, 1999, 2014, 2011, 2021, 2025. The difference in the laws of space and time caused a newcomer's name to appear on the ranking tower outside the testing center in a few seconds. As everyone expected, the battle strength of the testers quickly exceeded 2,000 points. Although there were fluctuations, the overall battle strength was still slowly increasing. Moreover, when it increased to around 2,100 points, it didn't increase much anymore. It hovered around this level. This situation was also within everyone's expectations. The further a cultivator went, the harder it was to increase their battle strength. Moreover, it would get closer and closer to a benchmark. The overall situation of steadily increasing was basically impossible. This was because 2,100 points was definitely the limit of the upper standard in a first-rate academy. If it didn't fluctuate by a few points, then it would be a top genius who broke through this threshold, directly surpassing a few hundred points to 3,000 points or even 4,000 points. It was extremely rare for someone to have a combat power value of over 4,000 points in a first-rate academy. It was hard to come across one in a million years or even 10 million years. 2152, 2139. 2841. Seventh from the bottom, direct disciple. Experts are here, 7 of them. Ling Feng and Li Yuan haven't appeared yet. Li Yuan is really strong. When one of the 4 direct descendant geniuses finished his test, his name, battle prowess, and background appeared on the ranking pagoda in the outside world, causing a commotion. This also allowed everyone to determine the number of top experts in this batch of testers. Direct descendant disciples would appear in every batch of admission tests. More than 10 of them had appeared in the previous tests, but it was only now that a true genius with an interception mission had appeared. Unfortunately, this person clearly failed to stop the famous Ling Feng and Li Yuan. The information about the direct descendants was unlike Chun Hao, Ling Feng, and the others who had gone through the arena battles and had long since spread the news. They had only entered when the test had begun. The cultivators outside only knew that the 4 direct descendant geniuses had appeared and the total number of people who had taken the test. Moreover, Li Yuan's name hadn't appeared yet, which was enough to explain one thing. In the foundation test, Li Yuan's results were in the top 6. How could his battle prowess be weak? The foundation test was the same as the college entrance exam results. The most taboo was a crippled examinee. If a crippled examinee was held back, the consequences would be very serious. Damn fatty. Wan Yixue clenched her teeth and took a deep breath as she thought to herself. She wasn't surprised that the fatty had entered the top 6 in the foundation test. Wan Yixue wasn't surprised at all by this result. To be more precise, when she had just finished her battle with Chun Hao, she was already very clear about it. Others didn't know, but she knew that during the arena battle, the wretched and shameless fatty was only playing with her. In the voice transmission, he had sung, "Find some free time, find some time, let this Lord Fatty play with you." Those extremely teasing, wretched, and shameless words. This Lord Fatty's first pleasure in life is to play with little sisters like you, rolling around the sheets and whatnot. The first style of the chain divine technique, but divine technique. With a push of my butt, I can sit on all the beauties in the world. The second style, golden spear, does not fall. With a thrust of my spear, I can gallop through thousands of valleys and caves. Even now, Wan Yixue still remembered it clearly. At that time, Chun Hao dared to use the voice transmission to tease her. In addition, when he used the but divine technique to press down, it carried a terrifying power and imposing manner. How could she, who had deeply felt it, not know that Chun Hao had played her and won over her? No matter how strong you are, this time, I will definitely let you, this damn fatty, know the consequences of teasing me. Wan Yixue clenched her fists tightly. Her fine black hair fluttered imperceptibly for a moment, and an extremely profound fluctuation flashed and disappeared in an instant. Azure Silk Jade Ripple Technique. The improvement of the Azure Silk Jade Ripple Technique was her true improvement. It's actually not there yet. I want to see how much it is. When He Ming saw that the name that appeared again was still not Fatty Li Yuan, his brows furrowed and formed a Chuan character as he thought to himself. 2989. A few seconds later, the 6 from the back, and it was still a direct descendant disciple's battle power value appeared. Unfortunately, it still couldn't break through the 3,000 limit. Damn fatty, it's your turn, right? Almost 3,000 points. That year when I first took the assessment, I had a high score of 3,123 points. That batch's second place, with a slight difference in total points, lost to the direct descendant disciple. He Ming thought to himself, to be able to surpass my preliminary assessment results, you have the ability. 3,000 points was a checkpoint. This was something that He Ming was very clear about. 3,123 points seemed to be a little more than 2,900 points, but the difference was like a natural chasm. Voila, N F asterisk C can. Just as He Ming was secretly competing with Chun Hao, a sudden clamor came from the surroundings, attracting He Ming's gaze. When he saw the female cultivator who caused such a huge commotion, Ming's pupils suddenly shrank. Beautiful, an unrivaled beauty. Purely in terms of figure, appearance, and temperament, this was definitely the most beautiful woman that Ming had ever seen. Even if one's heart already belonged to someone, seeing such an unrivaled beauty, which normal man would not be moved? What an old aura. What a pity. Strange. She doesn't look old? A newcomer from the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. Why are you here to look? The person who came was none other than Xian. The Grand Mist Supremacy realm's assessment had just ended, and all the cultivators walked out of the assessment square, but almost everyone walked towards the Grand Mist Supremacy realm's ranking pagoda. However, Xian went directly to the Daluo Golden Wonderland's pagoda with a hint of nervousness and anticipation. Her eyes were shining brightly as she quickly scanned the names one by one. Chapter 1203. Every newcomer's name could be seen at a glance. Their contribution points were temporarily 0. Their potential points would only be shown after the assessment if they did not need to be retested. If they were to be retested, the retest results would be used as reference. At this time, the cultivators from the Daluo Golden Wonderland had not completed all the tests. Looking at the names one by one, including the name that had just appeared, Xian could not find Li Yuan's name. Coupled with the discussions of the cultivators around her, Xian's heart trembled slightly. Although she already knew that Chun Hao's results would not be bad, it was already out of Xian's expectations that he would not be able to reach the last few places. After all, Chun Hao had just arrived at the great world of Xiandi. He had not passed through the growth period of his strength. Secondly, Chun Hao was only in his original body. He still had a few more lives that were crazier than the previous one. The geniuses who appeared in the 6th and 5th place had a combat power of around 2,800. However, when it was Ao Qian's turn to appear in the 4th place from the bottom, he broke the 3,000 mark and caused a commotion among the crowd. 3386. He had exceeded the 3,000 mark by 3,386 points. Such a result would definitely be the first place in countless batches of tests. However, this time, it was highly likely that there were 3 more geniuses who were stronger than him. Among the 3, Ling Feng and Li Yuan were confirmed. Moreover, they were not from the direct line of descent. Who would appear in the 3rd place from the bottom? Ling Feng and Li Yuan are confirmed. The last one must be the king of the direct line of descent. He should be the last one to appear. It is not easy for a non-direct line of descent to obtain the 1st place. It is rare for one to appear in 10 batches or even 100 batches. Yes, this is normal. The direct line of descent was nurtured from a young age by the Academy with countless resources and efforts. Moreover, as long as the Academy does not let them go, they will never betray the Academy. No matter how strong they are still disciples of the Academy. However, we are different. The truly powerful geniuses have no problem entering a top academy. Most of them would naturally choose to enter a top academy. With Ao Qian's combat power and possibly even stronger Ling Feng and Li Yuan, no matter which one of them goes to a top academy, they would be the best of the best. They came to the academy for the treatment of the top geniuses. F*CK, that's all I got. 3386. Without exposing my bloodline's origin power, I've already exceeded my usual level. Ao Qian shook his head as he returned to Fatty and the Carnage Squad. He was quite satisfied with his results. At this point, even he knew that the gap between the unfathomable Fatty and Xue Fian was too big. Even if he completely exposed himself, he might not be able to get 1st place. Since he couldn't be sure, it would be unwise to expose himself. After all, if he lost to Fatty and the others like this, he would at least have an excuse, right? It would be too shameful if they were to lose after exposing everything. Although the results of the test were already something to be proud of, to the proud tribesmen, the results were not the most important thing. The most important thing was that they did not lose to others. What are you looking at? 3386. That's not a bad result, but it's a pity that it's not as good as me. When Ao Qian looked at Ling Feng frowned and said proudly, "Chi." As he spoke, he turned into a stream of light and flew toward the combat strength testing tower. Vulgar. The test results are just a bunch of meaningless numbers. It's like floating clouds to me. Ao Qian curled his lips and said disdainfully, "You'll understand how powerful I am in the future. Fatty, what do you think he'll get?" Ao Qian, who couldn't help but turn around and ask Chen Hao, "Fatty, what do you think he'll get? The results will be out soon. What's there to guess?" Chen Hao's fat face was extremely calm. Chen Hao was a little surprised that Ao Qian didn't reveal his true strength in the end. After all, in the great world of CND, although Ao Qian's bloodline inheritance was powerful and rare, it belonged to the category of normal cultivators. It was also protected by the laws of the great world of CND. Even if it was exposed, it was nothing. But this guy, who was obviously as showy as Ling Feng, actually held back. However, although Chen Hao said so, he was actually very curious about Ling Feng's true combat strength. The great change technique, the special ability of the eye, and it was almost certainly related to the Lord of Ling Feng. How could he not have any trump cards? It had to be said that unless it was a real life and death battle, Chen Hao wouldn't dare to say that he could win against Ling Feng. Chi chi chi. Boom boom boom. In the combat strength testing tower, Ling Feng's aura exploded like a flash flood. His special ability was endless. One by one, the simulated cultivators fell into a pool of blood. He, who was slightly behind Xue Fian and Chen Hao, had to show his true strength if he wanted to get first place. After all, he was the first to appear. There was no way to judge, and he didn't dare to hold back. Ao Qian already had 3,386 points. Even if Xue Fian and Fatty were at this level, he would have to get more than 4,000 points to catch up. Of course, this was without considering their potential value. Fourth level. Stepping into the fourth level of the combat strength testing tower meant that his score had broken through the 3,000 mark. He was at least the second person to break through the 3,000 mark other than Ao Qian. The final score would depend on how many simulated cultivators Ling Feng could kill. At this time, as time passed, all the cultivators couldn't help but become nervous. They stared at the images that appeared on the combat strength testing tower and began to silently count the number of simulated cultivators Ling Feng had killed. "Damn it, he surpassed me." Not long after, Ao Qian said to himself gloomily, "I hid my strength well, but so did this guy. Damn it, the top genius of a first-rate academy is much more powerful than I thought. It looks like even if I expose all my strength, I might not be able to win against this guy." 3,413, 3,672. While Ao Qian was sighing, the number of simulated cultivators Ling Feng had killed was still soaring. Although the speed had begun to slow down, he was still at ease. His exquisite combat skills and the perfect nomological attributes of his divine ability allowed him to unleash his full potential. Everyone was amazed by his performance. Coupled with its high-end, high-class, low-key, luxurious exterior image, many girls were dazzled by it and screamed repeatedly. Fatty couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Vulgar. Everyone in the Milky Way is vulgar. They judge a book by its cover. Didn't Monkey kill valiantly and coquettishly just now? Why didn't the girls scream in excitement? Fifth level. Damn, he's too strong. He actually killed his way to the fifth level. Other than Chen Hao and the calm Xue Fian, who didn't reveal any emotions, even Ao Qian was shocked, let alone the other cultivators. Chapter 1204. When Ling Feng stepped into the fifth level, his combat power exceeded 4,000. His life force is about the same as mine, but his combat skills and mystique usage are not lagging behind. Ao Qian was shocked. It was within Ao Qian's expectations that Ling Feng's combat power would surpass his. However, Ao Qian did not expect Ling Feng's combat power to surpass 4,000. Even if he exposed his bloodline origin power, it would be a problem for him to surpass 4,000. At this level, the test was not as simple as attack power, speed, and endurance. After all, their results were about the same. Now that Ling Feng's combat power had exceeded his combat skills and mystique were naturally stronger. This was something that required time and countless battles to hone. Over 4,000 points. This is an existence that is hard to come by in a million years in any first-rate academy. Very good, very good. If this Ling Feng can sign a long-term agreement, he will definitely receive the best treatment from Dahua Academy. Teacher Gu Chan was truly excited. A combat power of more than 4,000 was an existence that was hard to come by in a first-class academy in a million or even 10 million years. Even a top-class academy, it was still very rare. Who would not be shocked? Moreover, whether Xue Fian could successfully stop him or not, Gu Chan would not have any responsibility. A genius with a combat power of over 4,000 had nothing to do with Kai Chamao. Even if they sent out their strongest direct disciple, they would not be able to stop him. Who could be blamed? Tremble, scream, girls. I'm going all out today. I will not lose to a fatty and a girl. Chi, 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 boom, boom. Ling Feng had already pushed himself to the limit. As the first to go out, he could only unleash his full strength. Even so, Ling Feng did not know if he could win the final battle. Ao Qin was already fine. Although Ling Feng felt that Ao Qin's strength was not limited to what he had shown, it did not matter. He could not compete with him for first place. However, the fatty and Xue Fian were going out after him, and Ling Feng could not see through them. If he held back a little, he might lose to them. That was not what he wanted. Therefore, he could only unleash his full strength. 44-58. When Ling Feng was ejected from the combat power testing tower, his dazzling combat power was fixed at 44-58. Loud cheers spontaneously erupted from the crowd, but outside the examination palace, there were gasps of surprise in front of the ranking pagoda. 44-58. A first-rate academy might not have such an opportunity in a million years or even 10 million years. Everyone was shocked by Ling Feng's combat power that had just appeared. What was even more shocking was that Ling Feng wasn't the last person to take the test. There were two other people with even better results after him. With Ao Qian at the front and Ling Feng at the back, this batch was already destined to be a very powerful batch. If Fatty Li Yuan and the other mysterious genius were as strong as Ling Feng, this batch would definitely be the strongest batch of geniuses in the past few hundred years of Dahua Academy. The last two. Could it be that this damned fatty is stronger than Ling Feng? Wan Yishui couldn't remain calm anymore. Ling Feng's battle prowess was through the roof, and Fatty was still behind Ling Feng. Would he be even stronger? He Ming's face turned a little green. 4,458. Let alone during the preliminary examination, he couldn't even reach that score now. Even though this was Ling Feng's result, and it was unlikely for the fatty to reach that score, but since he was able to surpass Ling Feng in the 3 basic tests and appeared after him, then even if there was a difference, it shouldn't be too big. It seemed like he could easily surpass him. How could this batch be so heaven-defying? What would Fatty's result be? Si Xian became even more nervous than when she was taking the test herself. Towards Chun Hao, she was already used to calling him Fatty. Although she knew that it was a disguise, she still felt more comfortable and natural. When Ling Feng was ejected, he looked down from above and stroked his bangs in front of his forehead. He looked at Fatty provocatively and said, "Fatty, how is my result?" This was a blatant provocation. What a show-off. You're so strong, does your master know? Fatty swung his fat butt and directly flew into the sky. When he flew towards the combat strength testing tower and brushed past Ling Feng, he suddenly said to Ling Feng, Chun Hao's words almost made Ling Feng fall down. He directly froze in the air and opened his eyes wide. He looked at the seemingly harmless fatty who was smiling at him. Always being imitated, never being surpassed. This is Master Fatty. Watch carefully. Chi. After Fatty finished his words, he directly flew into the combat strength testing tower, leaving Ling Feng, who was still shocked and in a daze. Phew! 4,458 points. This kid is really strong. If I don't use my trump card, I'm afraid I won't be able to beat him. The moment he stepped into the combat strength testing tower, Fatty's eyes shone with an incomparably sharp light. In front of him was Ling Feng. Behind him was the secretive Xue Fian. Moreover, Chun Hao's foundation test was almost 3 points lower than Xue Fian. It could be said that there was a wolf in front and a tiger behind. If he was not careful, Chun Hao's first place might fly away. Losing is not scary, but before I really lose, I can't lose. Fight! Chi! 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 Feeling the divine light and the profoundness of the endless runes covering his body, Chun Hao suddenly released his strongest aura. Buzz! After a full 10 seconds, there was a boom in Chun Hao's mind. His mind's incarnation had directly entered the testing tower of the reality illusion. This feeling was similar to Yi Lan's second world, but it was more realistic. The comprehension of the laws of the divine ability, the aura of the physical body, the strength of the soul, the state of mind, etc. were all completely the same. If he did not know that this was a test, he would not have known that he had entered the illusory reality. Chi. At this moment, the most detailed information about the Overlord Spear and the profoundness of the runes appeared in Chun Hao's mind. The moment this thought was formed, the Overlord Spear, which was comparable to reality, appeared in Chun Hao's hands. Magical. Even Chun Hao could not help but sigh at the magical power of the illusory reality. Magic treasure, divine weapon? As long as one had comprehended it, used it, or simply imagined it in one's mind, as long as the runes, materials, and the profoundness of the laws of the divine ability could stand up to scrutiny and could be refined in reality, a thought would be able to be born and become one's weapon. The only prerequisite was that one's thought could really be achieved in reality. Come, Chi. Just as Fatty held the Overlord's spear, the figures of simulated cultivators suddenly appeared from every corner of the first floor. There were a total of 1,000 of them. Die, Chi, Chi, Chi. The spear radiance bloomed, and an endless killing aura spread. Fatty's fat body did not move at all. He just stood there and started killing. Obviously, the strength of the simulated cultivators on the first floor was not enough for Fatty to choose the weak ones to kill first. Chapter 1205. However, in the assessment palace, Ao, Qian, Ling Feng, the Carnage battle team, Teacher Gu Chan, and all the other cultivators who could see Chun Hao's battle in the real illusion were shocked. The Fatty, who seemed to have a smile on his face the whole time, suddenly became serious. Especially when he suddenly released a murderous aura, it shocked everyone. How was this still the harmless Fatty? Cold killing aura, sharp gaze, domineering spear aura, terrifying power. The spear aura flashed, and blood was seen in every move. So fast. Damn. Is he cutting vegetables and melons? He's really powerful. I knew that Fatty's combat power was not bad, but I underestimated him. Although it's only the first level, his killing speed is too fast. Even Ling Feng couldn't compare to him when he was on the first level. Yes, this Fatty is really not simple. He just came to the great world of CND, and he's already so strong. How strong will he be in the future? He's definitely an extremely heaven-defying monster. Yes, he has at least 1,000 years of growth. His strength will increase very quickly. Although the results are not out yet, Fatty's combat power is definitely not low. He might even surpass Ling Feng. If it's 1,000 years later, I feel that even if Fatty enters a top academy, he will be one of the top monsters, at least in the Daluo Golden Wonderland. Chun Hao had just started killing when the buzzing sound of discussion exploded in the assessment palace. Ling Feng, who was showing off to Fatty just now, frowned slightly. His eyes flashed as he stared straight at Fatty in the image. His mind was completely immersed in the battle technique that shocked him. There were no moves or styles, but they were ingenious to the extreme. Every spear strike seemed simple and unadorned, but the profundities contained within, the angle, timing, speed, and so on of the spear strike were just right to attack vital points. Every move was an attack as a defense. The more Ling Feng watched, the more shocked and excited he became. Soon, he was immersed in Chun Hao's spear aura, as if he was drunk. Even Xue Fian, who had been calm since the beginning, had her eyes fixed on Fatty's figure. She didn't look away for even a moment. What an exquisite battle technique. Every move locked onto the opponent's weakness, saving the enemy's life. This little fatty was actually strong to the point where he could move as he pleased. And this murderous intent. How many massacres did he have to go through to reach such a level? I didn't expect this at all. The more Guchan watched, the more shocked he became. When Chun Hao stepped into the second level at extremely fast speed, he was certain that this fatty's combat strength was definitely stronger than Ling Feng's. The terrifying slaughter intent and shocking combat skills had far exceeded his expectations. What was even more shocking was that when the fatty was hiding, even he couldn't sense him at all. This was enough to prove that the fatty had absolute control over his slaughter will. To be able to control such a terrifying slaughter will, how strong was his soul, state of mind, and will? The third floor, the fourth floor. A moment later, under everyone's shocked gazes, Fatty entered the fourth floor. The first 3 floors, 3,000 points, had killed 3,000 simulated cultivators, but Fatty didn't show the slightest sign of fatigue. He didn't even suffer a single serious injury that would affect his battle. Furthermore, in the first 3 floors, the fatty did not take the initiative to choose. It could be said that he killed all the way to the end. Chi! Rumble. The moment the fatty's body appeared on the 4th floor with a terrifying slaughter will, several terrifying attacks came at him. This is more like it. Sensing the attacks coming at him, Chun Hao didn't feel any pressure. Instead, he became excited. In the first 3 floors, he had killed 3,000 simulated cultivators consecutively, which had completely aroused Chun Hao's slaughter will. At this moment, although Chun Hao's mind was clear, the murderous aura that radiated from within became more and more intense. It also had a subtle effect on his state of mind. The more he killed, the better he felt. The stronger the enemy, the higher his battle intent. On the 4th floor, the simulated cultivator's strength suddenly increased by a large margin, which naturally made Chun Hao even more excited. Chi! As the spear light flickered, an even more terrifying battle erupted. Die! Fatty's murderous aura completely erupted. Every time the word die came out from between his teeth, one or even several simulated cultivators would fall under the spear light. Blood dyed the sky. What is that? When Fatty killed 3,984 and was about to break through the 4,000 mark and enter the 5th floor, many of the cultivators present suddenly exclaimed in surprise. God, the power of faith. F*CK. Brother Fatty, can you not be so perverted? F*CK. Damn Fatty, can you be any more perverted? While the crowd was in an uproar, Ao, Qian, and Ling Feng's eyeballs almost fell to the ground. They were completely shocked by Fatty. Good lad. Teacher Gu Chan's beard trembled. This Fatty, Xue Fian, who had never revealed any emotions on her face, finally had a flash of surprise. She stared at the phantom formed by the slaughter while between Fatty's eyebrows and muttered. As for Fatty, he didn't even know that there was a change between his eyebrows. He was only immersed in the narcissism of killing. So handsome. Is this the slaughter god? Fatty should have inherited the slaughter will. Moreover, it should be an inheritance formed from the power of faith. Otherwise, it would be impossible to form such a lifelike god. This is the true god he believes in, right? I've never seen such a handsome true god. F*CK. It can't be, right? F*CK. Just as everyone was discussing, something even more shocking happened. Originally, as Chun Hao killed crazily, a fist-sized phantom sitting cross-legged appeared between his eyebrows. This phantom was the appearance of Chun Hao's original body. Its eyes were closed, like an old monk in meditation. This phenomenon naturally appeared in the real illusory phantom in the connected state. Just the appearance of such a lifelike figure was enough to shock all the cultivators. They even thought that it was the manifestation of Fatty's god of faith, a blessing. However, at this moment, the true god had actually opened his eyes. Its blood-red eyes were filled with endless killing intent. It was soul-stirring, but its eyes were slightly empty and lost. But even so, it was enough to shock everyone to the extreme. Inheriting the power of faith, giving birth to intelligence. Guchan, Lingfeng, Ao, Qian, Xuefian, and countless other experienced and knowledgeable cultivators came to a conclusion for Chunhao almost immediately. When they came to this conclusion, apart from being shocked, teacher Guchan and Xuefian did not have any other thoughts. However, Ao Qian and Lingfeng frowned. Ao Qian and Fatty hit it off, and it could be said that he was very impressed by Fatty. Lingfeng and Fatty had the same concealment and special ability. They had competed along the way, and there was a sense of appreciation for each other. Therefore, while the two of them were shocked, they also had a trace of worry. The power of inheritance was most afraid of giving birth to intelligence. Chapter 1206. In the great world of CND, when cultivators who cultivated the power of faith borrowed the power of faith, a shadow of the true God of faith would appear, giving them unparalleled power. However, it was extremely rare for a shadow to appear and open its eyes. It was obvious that it had gained sentience. It was also a taboo and feared existence for all cultivators. Once a cultivator reached this level, they would have to think twice before using this kind of power. Moreover, they would have to control its evolution. Otherwise, the soul of the original body might be replaced by it, just like when Hu Meinyang's mind gave birth to spiritual intelligence. At this moment, the shadow that appeared between the Fatty's eyebrows was obviously controlling the Fatty's slaughter. The fifth level. Just as everyone was in shock, Chunhao obtained 4,000 points and stepped into the fifth level without any suspense. Kill, 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 kill. Those who block me will die. Chunhao's mind was filled with endless killing intent. When a massacre intent appeared and opened its eyes, Chunhao knew what had happened to him. However, not only was Chunhao not worried, he was pleasantly surprised. Just like when he was in the demonic state, the third anima was naturally born. Now that the massacre intent had bloomed, the eighth anima was easily born. Just like the third anima, it was born when he was in his strongest state. It was an existence that was comparable to his strength. 4,500. He's about to surpass me. This Fatty actually has such a strong power of faith. Damn it, don't let him become a puppet. That would be boring. Lingfeng was still staring at the image, thinking to himself, could it be that he can break through 5,000 points? Xuefian could not help but think to herself, 5,000. Even if I use all my strength and expose my true body, I won't be able to break through it. Staring at the Fatty's figure, Xuefian frowned slightly. It seemed that she was unable to calm down. Voila. 5467. F asterisk CK. Is this possible? F asterisk CK. I didn't see wrongly. His combat power is 5,467. In front of the Daluo Golden Wonderland's pagoda tablet, all the cultivators were in an uproar. Countless people stared at the name and combat power that had just appeared on the pagoda tablet, unable to believe their eyes. 5467. In terms of pure battle power, he was ranked in the top 10 of the entire pagoda. What kind of concept was that? The newcomer, Li Yuan, in terms of combat power, had surpassed all the seniors of the Daluo Golden Wonderland in Dahua University. This was absolutely inconceivable. After all, the seniors, or rather, the senior students who were ranked at the top, were the direct descendants of Dahua University. They had been in the world for at least a few thousand years and had enjoyed the best treatment to increase their combat power to more than 5,000. For someone like Li Yuan to obtain such a powerful combat strength during the entrance exam, it was definitely unprecedented. Of course, this was referring to the University of Dahua. Yiming was dumbfounded. Wan Yixue was stunned. The people who were on the same team as Wan Yixue and Yiming, especially those who often provoked Yiming, were completely stunned. How could this fatty be so strong? However, reality was reality. A combat power of 5,467 was enough to prove Fatty's strength. There was no doubt about that. Similarly, the old beauty of Hong Ming, Si Xian, who was the center of attention, was also stunned. She did not need to know too much. Just from exclamations of the people around her, she knew how strong Chun Hao's combat power was. This batch of disciples is too strong. 3 of them are monsters, especially Li Yuan. Even the top schools, he would be among the top geniuses, right? Do you think the last one will be stronger? Stronger is a bit difficult, but definitely not weaker. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to surpass Li Yuan, Ling Feng, and Ao Qian in the foundation exam. Our Dahua University's Daluo Golden Wonderlands ranking is going to be interesting. Soon, 3 or 4 of the top 10 will change hands. Probably Xue Fian put away her shock. Under the gazes of thousands of people, as well as the expectations and guesses of countless people, as the first place of the foundation exam, she was the last one to appear. Putting her potential value aside, if Xue Fian wanted to maintain her lead in the foundation exam and combat power ranking, her combat power would need to reach around 5,200 points. Xue Fian knew her true combat power. Even if she fully exposed it, she would not be able to reach the 5,000-point mark. This meant that Fatty Li Yuan was destined to be the first in both the foundation exam and combat power ranking. The only thing Xue Fian could do was to reduce the gap as much as possible. When the potential value was retested, she would be able to surpass him, although the chances of that were very small. How could someone with such exquisite combat skills and combat power have a low potential value? Even if Fatty Li had around 1,000 points from Xue Fian's point of view, his potential value would not be too low. It would not be easy to turn the tables around. What a beauty! She's so beautiful that she's bubbling. When Xue Fian obtained 4,000 points and broke through to the 5th level, the image on the testing tower suddenly changed. The original, ugly appearance disappeared and was replaced by a noble and cold beauty. Beauty? It's a pity that you're taken. You don't have the body of primordialine. Otherwise, I would definitely take you. However, it's not bad to play around like this. Moreover, her talent is not bad. Ao Qian's eyes widened. He was almost drooling. Under the pressure of Fatty Li's terrifying combat power, Xue Fian removed her disguise as soon as she stepped onto the 5th level. The disguise that was not the ultimate form of the Great Change technique would affect one's combat power. It was just like how Si Xian did not want to disguise herself. There was no need for her to do so, as she would be exposed once she fought. Brother Ao, it's fine if you're just joking. However, if you really have such thoughts, you have to be careful. This woman must have been taken by a top expert or a genius who is more powerful than her. No matter what, you have to be careful when playing with her. Carnage Battle Team's leader, Su Tao, said. The way they addressed Ao Qian became respectful. What's there to be afraid of? What's there to be afraid of? What's there to be afraid of? Brother Fatty, are you interested? What taste? Don't say that I know you in the future. Fatty said in disdain. Strange, Ling Feng, who was watching from a distance, frowned slightly. Why do I feel like I've seen her somewhere before? That's impossible. I remember clearly even when I was in my mother's womb. How can I have such a feeling? Subconscious? Love at first sight? Nonsense. Although this girl is sexy and cold, she's not my cup of tea. Moreover, she's already taken. There's no reason for that. Why do I feel that she's familiar? Perhaps my supernatural ability has sensed a trace of her original appearance? Maybe my special ability has been allowed to increase by 1 level. Ling Feng's special ability could only see through all disguises, including the ultimate form of the Great Change technique. However, he could not see the essence like Chun Hao. Chapter 12:07. So strong? Other than using my strongest move, I've already used all my strength. Not only did I lose to Fatty, but I also lost to this girl? After a while, Ling Feng stared at the sexy and enchanting Xue Fian. He did not need to look any further. He felt that she would surpass his score. That was indeed the case. 4,873 points. Xuefian's combat power was second only to the crazy fatty. She had surpassed Ling Feng and Ao Qian and was ranked second. When the results came out, there was a commotion in front of the pagoda, ranking outside. Some male cultivators were especially excited when they saw that the last name was actually a girl. Moreover, her combat power was only second to the crazy Li Yuan, who had reached more than 4,800 points. However, although most people were excited and moved, they knew their own limits. There were very few geniuses who were eager to make a move. Xuefian was definitely the best candidate for a cultivation partner. It was a pity that the cultivators outside did not know that Xuefian did not have an originaling body. Otherwise, they would not have such thoughts. The crazy fatty's total score is first. Fatty Li Yuan is really crazy. He's first. Xuefian and Ling Feng are also crazy. It's a pity that they met Fatty Li Yuan, who is even crazier. Otherwise, not to mention the two of them, even Ao Qian would be able to get first place in 99% of the assessment batches. The strong meet the strong. It will depend on the potential value. Fatty Li Yuan and Xuefian will definitely have to retest. So will Ao Qian. Ling Feng did not hold back much. Moreover, the gap between him and Xuefian is huge. He is obviously stronger than Ao Qian. After Ao Qian retests, it is unlikely that he will surpass him. I don't think he will retest. The crowd was buzzing with discussion. Obviously, they had calculated the total score of Chun Hao, Xuefian, Ling Feng, and Ao Qian so far. The full score of the combat power was still calculated with 10,000 points. If converted to a 100-point system, the results of the four of them were as follows. First place, Chun Hao, 54. 7 points second place, Xuefian, 48. 7 points third place, Ling Feng, 44. 6 points fourth place, Ao Qian, 33. 9 points. The total score was calculated by 30% of the basic test score, 40% of the combat power score, and 30% of the potential value. After combining the results of the basic test and combat strength score, the total results of the four of them were as follows. First place, Chun Hao, 38. 74 points. Second place, Xuefian, 37. 21 points. Third place, Ling Feng, 33. 14 points. Fourth place, Ao Qian, 28. 68 points. The difference of 1 point in the total score was about 33 points in the 100-point potential value. After converting it to 10,000 points, it was 333 points. In order to surpass Chun Hao, Xuefian needed to surpass him by 500 points. Ling Feng needed to be 1,400 points higher than Xuefian in order to surpass her. Ao Qian also needed to be 1,500 points higher than Ling Feng to surpass him. This was basically impossible in terms of potential value. In the end, Ao Qian gave up on retesting his potential value. His original potential value was 1642. Even if he exposed his bloodline source, it would only increase by a little more than 1,000 points. That would be around 2,000 points, not 3,000 points. Even if Ling Feng didn't retest, he would still have a high score of 2,311 points. How could he be 1,500 points higher than Ling Feng? The fourth place was basically a foregone conclusion. Ling Feng hesitated for a moment before giving up on retesting his potential value. He couldn't surpass those in front of him, and those behind him couldn't catch up. Since he was already in third place, there was no need to retest. Xuefian, the direct disciple with a potential value of 1,000 points, directly took the test. In the end, she obtained a terrifying score of 3,846 points, causing an uproar. At this point, even Ling Feng couldn't help but be impressed. This woman with a strong body wasn't just strong in her inheritance. She was also strong in herself. When the cultivators present saw Xuefian's heaven-defying result, they couldn't be sure who would take first place between Fatty and Xuefian. Chun Hao's potential value had to be above 3,336 points in order to take first place. Otherwise, Xue Fian would take first place. Although Chun Hao wasn't impressed, he had to admit that Xue Fian was very heaven-defying. She was so heaven-defying that he had to use all his strength to maintain his lead. He couldn't relax at all. At the same time, the newcomer rankings on the Daluo Golden Wonderland ranking tower changed again. Xue Fian overtook Li Yuan and took first place among the newcomers. This made everyone realize that Fatty had surpassed Xue Fian's total score in the basic test and combat strength test. This was because Xue Fian had taken the potential value test first and confirmed the potential value results included in the ranking. However, this wasn't important. What was important was that all the cultivators in front of the tower gasped in shock. The potential value that appeared behind Xue Fian's name was 3,846 points. This was even more shocking than Chun Hao's over 5,000 points in combat strength. Brother Fatty, it's all up to you. Damn it, this woman is heaven-defying. I'm impressed. A potential value of 3,846 points is too amazing. Brother Fatty, you can do it. Brother Fatty, you can definitely win. While AO Qian and the Carnage Battle team members were cheering, Xue Fian, who had returned to her ugly appearance, intentionally or unintentionally, looked at Chun Hao provocatively. With a Wang sound, he shook his big butt and stepped into the potential value test space. How much potential value could Fatty have? Everyone knew that Fatty's potential value was definitely not bad, but no one could estimate how much it was. Xue Fian, who looked calm, became slightly nervous after Chun Hao started the test. Ever since she started cultivating, she had never lost to anyone. Or rather, she had never really competed with anyone. However, from her master's words, she knew that she was very strong. In the whole of the great world of CND, in the current Daluo Golden Wonderland, there were only a handful of people who were stronger than her. This time, her mission was to stop someone who was fated with her. She had to get first place. She didn't know what fated meant. She also didn't know who the fated person was. She only knew that she had to get first place. Therefore, after discovering Fatty's threat, she started to do her best until she finished the potential value test again. She had tried her best. The rest was up to fate. Fatty's potential value had become the key point. This was also what everyone was most concerned about at the moment. Time passed by minute. Under the space-time law, Fatty finally came out after 2 hours. At this moment, on the huge screen in the testing palace, and after Li Yuan's name on the pagoda ranking outside, Chun Hao's potential value after the test appeared. Everyone was stupefied. They were dumbfounded. Whether it was the cultivators at the scene or the cultivators in front of the ranking pagoda outside, they couldn't believe the number they saw. Wan Yishui and He Ming stared with their eyes wide open. Fatty's figure appeared in their minds. How could a damn Fatty be so heaven-defying? 4,139 points. Xi Xian's beautiful face blushed as she muttered. Chapter 1208. He broke the record, the highest potential value in the history of Dahua Academy. What a monstrous genius. His potential value has actually exceeded 4,000. In any top-notch academy, his potential value alone can be ranked in the top 10. This Li Yuan definitely has the ability to compete for the throne of Dahua Academy's Daluo Golden Wonderland. It's not just Li Yuan. Xue Fian, Ling Feng, and even AO Qian have the ability to compete. After all, a test is a test. Their strongest techniques will not be revealed. When it comes to a real battle, it's hard to say who is stronger and who is weaker. But no matter what, there are 4 super geniuses in this batch. Yeah, especially Li Yuan. His potential value has exceeded 4,000, setting the record for Dahua Academy's preliminary test since ancient times. He's really too powerful. Looking at the list on the pagoda monument, the potential value column behind Chun Hao's name had turned into a crimson number representing Dahua Academy's highest preliminary test record. The crowd buzzed in discussion. Regardless of whether it was during the preliminary test or after the entrance test, the potential value was the column that changed the least on the pagoda monument. Unless one's physical body, bloodline, soul, comprehension, and other aspects had undergone a qualitative transformation, The results would be stable no matter how many times one tested. The difference between the highest and the lowest would not exceed 100 points. As for whether it was higher or lower, it would depend on one's performance on the spot. In fact, for every academy and every realm, the pagoda monument rankings were based on contribution value, combat power value, and potential value. These three values represented the past, present, and future respectively. The contribution value represented the past battle results, recording the details of the cultivator. The combat power value represented the cultivator's current combat power, the most direct reflection of the cultivator's current strength. The potential value represented the cultivator's future and was closely related to what realm they could grow to in the future. Put together, it was a more comprehensive evaluation of the cultivator. First place, Li Yuan, unconditionally receives the treatment of the top 10 LUO Golden Wonderland in any pavilion of Dahua Academy for 1 year. If he displays the potential to become one of the top 10 in this year, he will enjoy this treatment permanently. Second place, Xue Fian. Third place, Ling Feng. Fourth place, Ao Qian. And the rest of the top 10 will enjoy the treatment of the top 100 in any pavilion for 1 year. Chun Hao's completion of the potential value test meant that this batch of assessments was over. At this moment, teacher Gu Chan announced the names of the cultivators who had received different treatment. All right, I'll send you out now. Once you leave, you'll see the ranking on the pagoda outside the testing center. It's also the honor ranking that all the cultivators in the University of Dahua pay attention to. Through it, you'll be able to understand your own strength and the strength of others. You'll have half a day of free time. You can use the token to wander around the academy. Half a day later, you will report to the academy's hall. At that time, you will be notified via the token. Wang, chi 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 chi. Just as Master Gu Chan finished speaking, all the cultivators in the testing palace were enveloped by the mysterious runic light, vanishing from where they stood. When he reappeared, he was already outside the entrance of the testing center. At a glance, he could see towering pagoda monuments. Let's go and take a look. Chi, chi. The cultivators who had just come out locked onto the top of the pagoda stele with the words Daluo Golden Wonderland and quickly flew over. He's out. There is a difference in the space-time laws between the testing palace and the outside world. In fact, from the beginning of the test to the end of Chun, Hao, and the others, as Master Gu Chan had said, it did not take much time at all. When Fatty Li Yuan appeared last, and his potential value broke the record of the University of Dahua's preliminary test, everyone knew that the newcomers were coming out. At this moment, Wan Yixue, He Ming, and the others all stood up. The old man, who had come to the pagoda stele for various purposes, was excited. He released his divine consciousness and scanned the newcomers who were flying over. Brother, which Xue Fian? Which one is Li Yuan? Which one is Ling Feng? Which one is Ao Qian? Among the four monstrous geniuses, Xue Fian was undoubtedly the most anticipated existence among the male cultivators because of her gender. Although many people knew that they were not worthy or qualified, it did not mean that they could not admire her, right? Fatty Li Yuan, Ling Feng, and Ao Qian were also anticipated. Brother Fatty, Brother Ao, you have agreed to join the Carnage Battle Team. Please don't agree to anyone else. I can even let you be the captain. The strong will be the king. Chun Hao, Ao Qian, and the members of the Carnage Battle Team, who were standing together, were sent out of the testing palace almost at the same time. The moment they came out, the captain, Su Tao, who had experience in the academy, said directly to Chun Hao and Ao Qian, no matter what, Su Tao and the others would not give up on these two heaven-defying existences. If they could be with the real, monstrous geniuses, even if they did not care about anything, they would be affected by the providence and benefit from it. How could they not know this? Brother Fatty is a man of his word. Don't worry. Brother, I said that I don't care about the battle team. Since Brother Fatty is joining you, I will naturally follow. Lonely as snow, with Brother Fatty as the guiding light, Brother Fatty is very, beauty. F*CK, Brother Fatty, aren't you too fierce? Just as the skinny monkey was speaking, his eyes suddenly widened and he looked like a pig. He was almost drooling. However, when he saw the beauty and called out, he was completely blocked by the fatty's swinging buttocks. He was shocked by the fatty. When he saw the beauty, he just called out to her, but fatty actually shot over directly. F***CK. It can't be. However, A.O. Chien and the members of the Carnage Battle team were immediately dumbfounded. Fatty and the stunning beauty, who was a beauty from the Grand Miss Supremacy realm, actually held hands intimately, as if they were Tao companions. What made them even more surprised and puzzled was that although the beauty's life aura was very old, her face did not show any signs of aging. Fatty's Tao companion? Ling Feng, who had just come out and locked on a fatty in A.O. Chien, was also a little surprised when he saw this scene. His gaze was fixed on Si Xian's face, and he frowned slightly. F***CK, what's wrong with Brother Fatty? Why do I feel like I've seen her before? Could it be that all beauties are fated with Brother Fatty? Ling Feng did not understand. He was a little annoyed. When he saw Xue Fian's face, he felt that she was familiar, as if he had seen her before. Now, when he saw Si Xian, this stunning beauty, he also felt like he had seen her before. This kind of hazy feeling should not have appeared on a cultivator from the Daluo Golden Wonderland. Perhaps it's time for Brother Fatty to find a beautiful and talented Tao companion. However, who in this first-rate academy is worthy of Brother Fatty? Ling Feng shook his head and attributed it to his lonely emotional state. Chapter 1210. Si Xian's attack power and speed were at the bottom of the 3 basic tests, but her endurance was extremely terrifying. She was only less than a minute behind the first place and obtained second place. In the combat strength test, Si Xian displayed this terrifying endurance to the fullest. She used several times the time of other cultivators to break through the second level. When she entered the third level, she was directly killed because of the increase in combat strength of the simulated cultivators. Si Xian also obtained a high score of 2,000 points, surpassing most of the cultivators who had more than 1,000 points. This made those who had previously despised Si Xian shut up. She had completely relied on her terrifying endurance to kill all the simulated cultivators on the second level who were of similar strength. Moreover, everyone felt that if the simulated cultivators on the third level were not directly stronger than those on the second level and exceeded Si Xian's endurance range, Si Xian would probably have been able to continue and kill them continuously. This situation also made many cultivators realize that the specially recruited Si Xian was probably not what they had previously guessed. At the same time, many cultivators once again developed a strong interest in Si Xian, this unrivaled beauty at the level of an ageless legend, and paid attention to Si Xian. When Si Xian did not go to the ranking pagoda of her realm, but went to the neighboring Daluo Golden Wonderland's ranking pagoda, many Grand Miss Supremacy Realm cultivators were puzzled. What was there to pay attention to in the Daluo Golden Wonderland? However, not long after, the fatty's appearance dispelled the doubts in their hearts. The two of them naturally stood hand in hand and communicated intimately through voice transmission. Anyone could tell that they were a pair of Tao companions when the cultivators of the Daluo Golden Wonderland saw Si Xian's appearance and sensed Si Xian's aged aura of life. Regardless of Si Xian's strength, they immediately thought that the fatty had taken a fancy to her unrivaled beauty. The men praised the fatty's taste and expressed their envy, jealousy, and hatred. The women lamented that they did not have Si Xian's unrivaled beauty and were similarly envious, jealous, and hateful. However, the cultivators of the Grand Miss Supremacy realm were unhappy. How could a little fatty who was not handsome and was only from the Daluo Golden Wonderland be worthy of an ageless beauty? Moreover, he was a genius with a terrifying endurance and a combat strength of 2,000 points. Chi. Moron Qianhua? It can't be. What was he going to do? Could it be that he has taken a fancy to Chen Si? Just as the fatty and Si Xian's meeting attracted the attention of everyone on the fatty's side and nearly half of the cultivators on Si Xian's side, Moron Qianhua, The cultivator who won the first place with an absolute advantage in the Grand Miss Supremacy realm suddenly flew towards Xian and Chun Hao. In this batch of assessments, the overall results of the Daluo Golden Wonderland were heaven-defying, and the Grand Miss Supremacy realm wasn't bad either. Murong Qianhua's 3 basic tests were 4,238 for 1,233, 13 days, and his combat strength was 4,231. Other than the endurance, which was calculated based on time, the other values were between 4230 and 4240, with a difference of a single digit. Was this a coincidence or perfect control? Hello, Chun-Si. Asterisk crash. Asterisk the crowd immediately exploded. When the cultivators of the Grand Miss Supremacy realm saw that Murong Qianhua was indeed looking for Chun-Si, they were naturally shocked. After all, Murong Qianhua, who won the first place and had a terrifying score, would definitely be a top genius, even in a top academy. What kind of woman could he not get? Xian, a stunning beauty with a youthful appearance, was undoubtedly an excellent choice for the ordinary cultivators among them, but she was definitely not worthy of a monstrous genius like Murong Qianhua. Moreover, no one expected the cold Murong Qianhua to take the initiative to approach Chun-Si. But since he was close, with Murong Qianhua's appearance, strength, and potential, they believed that not many women could resist the temptation. Even if Murong Qianhua was just playing around, many of the Hongmeng Supremes who rushed over couldn't help but look at the fatty with a trace of sympathy and pity. Isn't this a slap in the face? And a slap in the face? F***CK, a blatant slap in the face, how arrogant. Don't look at this guy's status as a Hongmeng supremacy. I guarantee that if he really wants to take advantage of the fatty, he will be trampled by the fatty sooner or later. How can the fatty's face be slapped by ordinary people? The cultivators of the Daluo Golden Wonderland were even more in an uproar. They all looked at Murong Qianhua as if they were looking at an idiot. The Grand Miss Supremacy realm was amazing. In front of a monstrous genius like the fatty, it wouldn't take long for him to be trampled to death. This was the thought of most of the cultivators in the Daluo Golden Wonderland. In their opinion, if they were to show off in front of the fatty now, they wouldn't even know how they died in the future. And it wouldn't be too far away. People from both sides looked at Xian. Fatty, let me introduce you. This is the first place of our Grand Miss Supremacy realm's recent assessment. The 3 basic tests are 4238 for 1,233, 13 days, a combat strength of 4,231, a direct descendant of the University of Dahua, Murong Qianhua. After frowning slightly, Xian showed a natural smile. Instead, she introduced Murong Qianhua to Chun Hao. Hearing Xian's introduction, Chun Hao was slightly stunned. The cultivators of the Daluo Golden Wonderland were in an uproar. F***CK. This was also a super genius. This result, no matter which test it was at the level of a fortress. However, compared to the fatty, he was still a bit worse. However, the Daluo Golden Wonderland and the Grand Miss Supremacy realm were 2 different levels of tests. The comparison results could only be used as a reference. Hello. What surprised the cultivators of the Grand Miss Supremacy realm was that the fatty did not show any surprise after hearing Xian's introduction. Instead, he narrowed his bright eyes and greeted Murong Qianhua with a smile. This is my cultivation partner, Li Yuan. He also happens to be the first place of the Daluo Golden Wonderland's recent assessment, Xian continued. Crash. As soon as she finished speaking, the cultivators of the Grand Mist Supremacy realm and Murong Qianhua, who had rushed over, looked at the ranking pagoda monument of the Daluo Golden Wonderland with a trace of surprise. What? F***CK? It can't be, right? This fatty is so terrifying. This time, not only did all the Hongmeng Supremes' eyeballs fall to the ground and their jaws dislocate in shock, even Murong Qianhua stared at the ranking pagoda monument with a deep frown. Although the comparison between the Daluo Golden Wonderland and the Grand Miss Supremacy realm did not have much significance, there was still a basic range. For example, The test results of the Daluo Golden Wonderland could be estimated after being promoted to the Grand Miss Supremacy realm. A combat strength of 5,467. What kind of heaven-defying result was this? Such a result, even after being promoted to the Grand Miss Supremacy realm, would be reduced in the Hongmeng Supreme's test, but it would not be reduced by too much. It would not be a problem to maintain a combat strength of around 5,000. However, this was not what really shocked them. After Li Yuan's name, the potential value displayed in red was 4139. It was even more heaven-defying. Chapter 1211. A potential value of 4,139. Not to mention first-rate academies. Even top-notch academies were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. But now, one had actually appeared in front of them. Moreover, it was an extremely ordinary-looking fatty. How could the Grand Miss Supremacy Realm cultivators not be shocked? A potential value of 4,139. It's so strong. Murong Qianhua gasped in his heart. He was shocked beyond words. Murong Qianhua, the supreme genius of the direct line of descent of the University of Dahua, was not born this time to stop the non-direct line of descent from winning first place. This was because, not to mention this batch, even in all the batches of powerhouses in the past million years, there were not many who were qualified for him to appear. His birth this time was completely arranged by his master. His master had not told him the specific reason yet. Murong Qianhua did not even have to retest his initial potential value of 1,000, and he won first place in the Grand Miss Supremacy realm with an absolute advantage. Such a heaven-defying monster definitely had the capital to look down on the world and consider everything beneath him. There were very few things and people that could shock and interest him. However, what he did not expect was that as soon as he was born, he would meet a woman he was interested in, Chun-Si. She had a peerless appearance and an eternal youthful appearance. To any normal man, she had a strong attraction, especially to Murong Qianhua, who had just been born and did not have a Taoist companion. In other words, he had not really been in contact with any woman. Her attraction was undoubtedly greater. He believed that with his appearance, strength, aptitude, and potential, it would be difficult for a female cultivator to refuse him even if he was just playing around. He could fool them with a few words. Therefore, Murong Qianhua did not want to lower himself and approach Si Xian in public. However, he, who had been paying attention to Si Xian, could not help it when he saw that Si Xian was in close contact with a fatty from the Daluo Golden Wonderland. Even if he was just playing around with a girl he liked, he could not let others take her first, right? He was not interested in those who did not have a body of Vitaline. When Murong Qianhua took the initiative to approach and greet Si Xian, he did not take the fatty seriously at all. In his opinion, he was much better than Chun Hao in all aspects. They were not on the same level at all. Even if the fatty and Si Xian were to be Taoist companions in name, he was confident that he could easily win her over. But now, my true potential value is at most around 3,500. How can this unremarkable fatty, who I can't sense anything special about, be so heaven-defying? Murong Qianhua stared at Chun Hao with a trace of imperceptible ferocity in his eyes. He smiled and cupped his fists. Impressive. Although you're only in the realm of Daluo Jingxian, it is rare for your combat power and potential value to reach such a high level. Even when I was in the Daluo Golden Wonderland, I was only a little stronger than you. Amazing. This Murong Qianhua is really hiding something. I knew it. No wonder they all got more than 4,000 points. There's no need for him to reveal his full strength. That is indeed the case. Otherwise, he wouldn't have refused to retest the direct line disciple's potential value of 1,000. Everyone, including Chun Hao and Si Xian, was surprised by Murong Qianhua's nonchalant pretentiousness. His smile contained an air of arrogance, and no one doubted the authenticity of his words. Murong Qianhua was the only one who knew his own weight. However, bragging was cheap, and he had the capital to brag. His test data showed that except for the endurance test, which was pushed to the limit by Si Xian, he did not do his best in the other tests. However, even if he did his best, it would not be much higher. Moreover, his so-called claim that he was stronger than Chun Hao in the Daluo Golden Wonderland was complete nonsense. However, in this way, he could surpass the fatty and increase his chances of successfully poaching Si Xian. Therefore, he did not blush when he bragged. So impressive? Chun Hao showed an exaggerated look of shock. Compared to the top monstrous geniuses, I still need to work harder. Murong Qianhua still had a faint smile on his face. He was neither humble nor smug. His performance was just right, and no one would doubt the authenticity of his words. He was full of the style of a genius. Miss Chen Si, I admire your endurance and talent. As the captain of the Starlight Squad, I invite you to join our Starlight Squad. Whether it is real or illusions, training, missions, and so on, we're the closest partners. Are you willing? Crash, Starlight Squad. Starlight Squad. Oh my God. Murong Qianhua is actually the captain of the Starlight Squad. No wonder, no wonder. Following Murong Qianhua's words, the crowd burst into an uproar. A huge uproar broke out in the crowd. The Starlight Squad was the #1 battle squad in the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. They were the idols of countless students in the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. The members of the squad had reached the peak of 100,000 people in the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. Moreover, they adopted an elimination system. It could be said that the members who could stay in the squad for a long time were the elites in the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. Among them, there were dozens of people who had made their identities public. They were the top geniuses from the strongest academy in the Great Hua Star. However, the soul of the squad, which was the captain, was extremely mysterious. No one knew his true identity. Other than in the real illusions, no one in the real world, not even the vice captain, had met him. However, his valiant strength and leadership had developed the Starlight Squad into the #1 battle squad in the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. He deserved to be called the soul of the squad. For the countless academies and battle squads in the Great Hua Star, the captain of the Starlight Squad was a legend and an idol-like existence. At this moment, other than Chun Hao and Si Xian, who had not experienced the illusions, who would not be shocked by Murong Qianhua's words. It was also at this moment that the cultivators present understood why the mysterious captain of the Starlight Squad had not made his true identity public. The identity of a genius from the Great Hua Star could not be made public. F***CK, this is my idol. What should I do? The members of the Carnage Squad were shocked when they heard Murong Qianhua's words. The development of the Starlight Squad, the way they operated, and their terrifying strength were the most admired existence in the Carnage Squad. They were also the role model for the Carnage Squad to study and learn from. Their captain was their idol. However, their idol was Murong Qianhua, a person who had slapped Fatty in the face. It was obvious that he wanted to poach Fatty. How could they not be frustrated? Fatty had promised to join the Carnage Squad. Face slapping. Brother Fatty, it's not that I want to stir up trouble, but I can't tolerate this. At this moment, He Ming and the brother from the Wan Yishui squad sent a telepathic message to Chun Hao, hoping for the world to be in chaos. Chapter 12:12. Brother Fatty, don't be impulsive. The captain of the Starlight Battle Team is a legend in our great transforming star. We can't afford to offend him. Brother Fatty, we can't afford to offend this person. Try not to offend him. Brother Fatty, the Starlight Battle Team is our great transforming star. When everyone saw that the extremely exaggerated shock on the Fatty's face froze, and his fat face instantly turned into the color of a pig's liver, the members of the Carnage Battle Team who were in a dilemma also transmitted messages to the Fatty. If the Fatty offended Murong Qianhua, even they would not dare to be in the same battle team as the Fatty. The terrifying influence of the Starlight Battle Team was not something they could compete with. Anyone could see that the Fatty was angry. No matter who it was, as long as they had a little bit of dignity, they would not be able to bear such a blatant slap in the face by Murong Qianhua. In front of so many cultivators, everyone could see that Fatty and Xixian were a pair of Taoist companions. Murong Qianhua had invited them aggressively. Although he didn't explicitly say that he wanted Xixian, it was obvious that he wanted Xixian. A blatant slap in the face. The Fatty, whose face was slightly trembling and the color of a pig's liver, stared at Murong Qianhua. Murong Qianhua, who stood with his hands behind his back and a faint smile on his face, completely ignored the Fatty's gaze and looked directly at Xixian. Xixian frowned slightly and looked sideways at Chun Hao beside her. Ling Feng frowned slightly at first, but soon he looked at the three of them with interest. Ao Qian licked his lips and looked ready to make a move. His eyes were full of expectation. Although Xue Fian was expressionless, her eyes also stopped on Chun Hao and the other two. Xixian stared at Chun Hao for a full half a minute. Seeing that this guy looked embarrassed and was about to flip out but did not say anything, she felt a little disappointed. Xixian was not an idiot. Of course, she could see what Murong Qianhua thought of her. His invitation in front of Chun Hao and many other cultivators was undoubtedly a blatant slap in the face to Chun Hao, who was his nominal Taoist companion in disguise. But for Xixian, it could show Murong Qianhua's sincerity. Murong Qianhua's expression and tone were confident to the point of arrogance, as if he was sure that Xixian would not refuse. In this kind of situation, as a woman, the first thing that came to her mind was undoubtedly that Fatty would fight back and announce their relationship forcefully so that she would reject him. This was the only way to show how important she was to him. However, the fat man just stared at Murong Qianhua with an embarrassed expression and didn't say anything. Obviously, the fat man only cared about being cheated in the middle and didn't care about her reaction. "Fatty, are you willing?" Xixian shook her head slightly, casting aside the little bit of disappointment, and took the lead to speak. What was there to be disappointed about? The two of them were just pretending to be Dao companions. If they got serious, they would lose. However, Xixian did not directly refuse Murong Qianhua's invitation. Instead, she played dumb and passed the ball to Chun Hao, who did not do anything. Although it wasn't straightforward, it definitely gave Chun Hao face. At least in everyone's eyes, Xixian's question undoubtedly told everyone that Fatty was her core. "Miss Chen-Si, I'm sorry. I like you. Although this fat man is good, my team doesn't need him." Murong Qianhua didn't allow Chun Hao to speak. He frowned slightly and looked directly at Xixian. After a slight pause, he continued, "Do you understand what I mean? You should have just arrived at the great world of Xiandi not long ago. This is a really powerful world. For you, there will be more opportunities and opportunities. It depends on how you choose." Damn! Chun Hao, who was seething with anger and glaring at Murong Qianhua, was completely defeated by Murong Qianhua. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen such a shameless person. Master Fatty didn't speak because he wanted to see Xixian's thoughts. Did he really think that Master Fatty was afraid? He actually wanted a yard after taking an inch. Wasn't this too blatant? However, the ugly expression on the Fatty's face disappeared as he cursed under his breath. Instead, he smiled intimately as he squinted at Xixian and said, "Darling, have you ever seen such a shameless person?" Xixian was slightly stunned. For a moment, she didn't understand what Chun Hao was up to. Murong Qianhua frowned slightly and suddenly turned his head. His sharp eyes looked directly at Chun Hao like two cold swords. They were filled with a sense of threat. Fatty's talent was very abnormal. Even he couldn't compare to him. However, Fatty was now one realm lower than him. The future was full of variables. How could he be sure? Murong Qianhua, who had never admitted defeat, was naturally not afraid. He believed that bragging his powerful strength and exposing his identity as the captain of the Starlight Battle Team was enough to deter Fatty. Fatty, who was obviously angry but didn't say anything, proved his judgment. Therefore, he was full of confidence and continued to force Xixian to make a choice. However, he didn't expect that Fatty, who didn't dare to say anything, would suddenly become so calm. The question was obviously directed at him. How could he, who was arrogant, tolerate it? Feeling the cold aura suddenly emitted from Chun Hao's body, Xixian who didn't know what Chun-Hao was up to, understood that Fatty was going to flip out. She couldn't help but secretly rejoice. While Chun-Hao was still worried about her, he finally thought of Murong Qianhua's strength. He had just entered the University of Dahua and hadn't completely settled down. How could he offend such a terrifying monster from the direct line of descent? I'm sorry. What are you sorry for? However, Cixin had just said the word sorry when Fatty grabbed her waist and interrupted her. Murong Qianhua, right? The number one in the Grand Miss Supremacy realm, the direct line of descent from the University of Dahua. Is he strong? The Starlight Battle Team is strong? In front of Master Fatty, they are nothing. You're not the first one who dares to have designs on my woman, and you won't be the last either. It can't be helped. Every single one of my women is as devastatingly beautiful as Cece. But you're the most shameless, and the one who doesn't have any self-awareness. What are you looking at? Look at Lord Fatty. I'm still 1,000 times more handsome than you with your nose up in the air. Don't emit that little bit of pressure. In front of Master Fatty, even if you advance to the true immortal stage, it's useless. Are you worthy of snatching Master Fatty's woman? Do you dare to drop one level and have a life-and-death duel with Master Fatty? What are you talking about? Cixin didn't expect Chun-Hao to say this. She immediately glared at him and transmitted her voice. Ling Feng, Ao, Qian, Shuefian, the members of the Carnage Battle Team, Wan Yishui, He Ming, and the others were all shocked by Fatty's words, let alone the surrounding cultivators. Firstly, they were shocked by Fatty's arrogance. It seemed that he had more than one Dao companion like Chen Si. Secondly, they were shocked that Fatty actually dared to suggest that the other party drop one level and have a life-and-death duel. This was too bold. Chapter 12-13. It was a duel of life and death. How could he say that so easily? Although the strength and talent that Fatty had displayed were monstrous to a level that even first-rate academies could not reach, his opponent was Murong Qianhua. The test results were nothing. It was meaningless to compare the two realms. However, Murong Qianhua was the captain of the Starlight Squad. How strong were his combat strength and combat skills? There was no doubt that as long as the cultivators present had been in the real illusion, they knew how abnormal Murong Qianhua was. However, the moment the fat man opened his mouth, he asked Murong Qianhua to lower himself by one level and duel with his son. Doesn't this fatty know how terrifying the captain of the Starlight Squad is? Obviously, he doesn't know. Otherwise, why would he want to die? I'm afraid Fatty is done for, not necessarily. Fatty has such monstrous talent and strength. He might not be worse than Murong Qianhua. He won't be worse than Murong Qianhua. However, you have to know that Murong Qianhua is at the peak of the Grand Miss Supremacy realm. Even if he suppressed his realm and lowered himself to the Daluo Golden Wonderland to fight with Fatty, his state of mind, will, combat skills, and other aspects still maintain the height of the Grand Miss Supremacy realm. Fatty's talent is not as good as Murong Qianhua's. Even if he is the same or even a little better than Murong Qianhua, how can he win with such a gap? Under normal circumstances, suppressing one's realm was only suppressing the level of one's strength and heavenly law. However, one's state of mind, will, and knowledge could not be suppressed. To put it simply, after Murong Qianhua suppressed his realm to the Daluo Jinxian, he was definitely stronger than when he was in the Daluo Golden Wonderland. This was undoubtedly disadvantageous for Chun-Hao. Of course, I understand this. However, Fatty is so arrogant. He should be very confident. Awesome. Brother Fatty is mighty. This Fatty is really not to be trifled with. I like it. After a brief shock, Ao Qian and Ling Feng revealed a hint of excitement in their eyes. The two of them were not afraid of anything. They were also hot-blooded and flamboyant. Originally, when they saw the Fatty being slapped in the face without making a sound, they had already seen through the Fatty's pretentious nature. They didn't think that the Fatty was afraid. However, they didn't expect the Fatty to be more ruthless than they thought. A duel to the death. If it were the two of them, A duel would be inevitable, but the word life and death would never come up. After all, his opponent was Murong Qianhua, the captain of Starlight Battle Team. Even though she had revealed her true identity during the test, Xue Fian, who was still concealing her appearance and aura, shook her head. "Little fatty, you're courting death. Do you think you can provoke our captain?" It took a long time to describe, but in fact, it only took a breath. After a brief shock, among the cultivators of the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm, a disciple who was looking at Murong Qianhua with excitement suddenly glared at Chun Hao arrogantly and scolded. "Captain Murong, this fatty is blatantly provoking us. I'm not a troublemaker, but this is absolutely intolerable." Wan Yishui and He Ming's cheeky habits took advantage of the opportunity to act up. "Fight! Fight, fight, fight! Captain Murong, fight! You're the idol of our great transforming star, a legend. Kill the fatty. How dare you provoke Captain Starlight? Die!" With the start of the duel, chaos suddenly ensued. As the saying goes, the eunuchs are more anxious than the emperor. Whether it was the cultivators of the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm or the Daluo Golden Wonderland, at this time, there were many busybodies who were stirring up the crowd. Who wouldn't want to see a duel to the death between two monstrous geniuses who were also top existences in the top academies? As for who would win, who would live, and who would die, no one would care except for those who were related to the two. At least, the cultivators present who were competitors wouldn't care. At this time, the fatty stared at Murong Qianhua with an imposing manner, as if waiting for the other party to speak. Murong Qianhua's originally indifferent and arrogant look had now turned into a frown. Should he accept the challenge or reject it? Murong Qianhua was in a dilemma. He really didn't expect that this ordinary-looking fatty would still dare to challenge him after knowing his situation. Not only did he challenge him, but he also directly asked for a duel to the death. To him, this was absolutely a blatant contempt. He hadn't appeared before, but was this test results and his identity as the captain of the Starlight Squad just for show? However, it was also because he didn't expect the fatty to be so fierce that Murong Qianhua didn't dare to act rashly. After all, when he said that he was stronger than the fatty in the Daluo Golden Wonderland, it was all a bluff. The heaven-defying potential value and the terrifying combat strength value were definitely not something he could achieve. Although he had a certain advantage in the sealed realm, the fatty's abnormal data was undoubtedly the most direct proof of his strength. Chun Hao wasn't an impulsive person. From a moment he stepped into the cultivation world until now, the number of times he lost his mind could be counted on one hand. However, his performance at this moment gave others the impression that he was a fearless and hot-blooded brute. In fact, Chun Hao was very clear that whether Murong Qianhua agreed or not, it was unlikely that only one of them could survive because of this conflict. Even if they wanted to, the Dahua College would never allow it. What Chun Hao wanted to do was nothing more than a slap back in the face with all his might. Whether he could win or not, at least he could fight to his heart's content and vent his anger. At the same time, he wanted to tell everyone that women were Lord Fatty's reverse scale. No matter who you were, if you dare to have any ideas, Lord Fatty would dare to fight you to the death. At first, Chun Hao concluded that Murong Qianhua would agree, but now he was a little puzzled. Wasn't the legend very powerful? The captain of Dahua Planet's #1 squad, the idol of countless cultivators, and also said that he was stronger than him in the Daluo Golden Wonderland. Why didn't he immediately flip out in the face of his provocation? "You don't dare." The fat man narrowed his eyes and couldn't help but provoke again with a contemptuous look. At this moment, everyone's eyes were on Murong Qianhua. Murong Qianhua, who frowned, suddenly snorted and said, "You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. You don't dare? I, Murong Qianhua, just don't want to take advantage of you. If you really want to fight, then catch up to my realm and challenge me again. I don't want to bully people with a sealed realm." Shoo! Suddenly, there were a lot of boos from the crowd. Although Murong Qianhua spoke confidently, and his expression seemed to be the case at this time, his words made many people who wanted to watch the fun unhappy. The bench and melon seeds were ready, but the protagonist refused to act. It was too boring. Murong Qianhua ignored them and looked directly at Xixin again, saying, "Miss Chen Si, such a boorish man who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Although he has some talent, he won't know how he died in the future. You have to think carefully. Who are you saying doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth? I think you're the one who thinks you are infallible. It's not too late to say such words after you have sealed your realm and defeated my cultivation partner." After Chun Hao mentioned a life-and-death duel, Xixin, who didn't stop Chun Hao at all, finally couldn't stand it anymore. Chapter 12:14. Ugh. Chun Hao was a little stunned. When did this girl have so much confidence in me? Xixin's sudden words were undoubtedly despising Murong Qianhua and defending Chun Hao. But there was no doubt that this contempt was also a provocation to Murong Qianhua. Xixin dared to say so because she naturally thought that Chun Hao was sure of winning and was not afraid of Murong Qianhua accepting the challenge. You don't know what's good for you. The guy who jumped out before, in order to cling to Murong Qianhua, jumped out again like a dog raised by Murong Qianhua. Captain, there's no need to be modest to such a person. Just teach him a lesson. Otherwise, he will think that the captain is really afraid of him. Yes, Captain Murong, do it. Let us rookies appreciate the real heroism of Captain Starlight. Starlight is invincible. Captain is invincible. Teach this arrogant fatty a lesson. Support. Following the words of the man who was born cheap, countless busybodies suddenly clamored. Murong Qianhua was annoyed. He wanted to pinch this talkative dog to death. Would it die if he didn't talk so much? My so-called strength was just a bluff. If I was really stronger than this fat man, why would I need your encouragement? But he, who cherished his face, would never say this out loud. Looking at the fat man's provocative and determined eyes and Chun Si's contemptuous expression, Murong Qianhua became more and more unconfident. He could only continue to pretend to be sanctimonious to the end. Murong Qianhua, who had a good control of his expression, looked at Xixin's face, shook his head slightly, sighed, and said, "Miss Chen Si, you have disappointed me. I hope you won't regret it. Little fatty, catch up with my realm as soon as possible if you have the ability. I will never do things that have an unfair advantage, and you are not qualified enough for me to seal my realm to fight with you." After Murong Qianhua finished speaking, he turned around and left. He turned a blind eye to the surrounding cultivator's words. His expression was aloof, and he walked with his hands behind his back. He looked like a master who was detached from the world and did not want to lower himself to the same level as the fat man and Xixin. What made everyone believe in Murong Qianhua even more, and no longer doubted his ability and identity, was that he, who seemed to be walking slowly with his hands behind his back, clearly appeared in everyone's eyes. However, with every step he took, his figure would increase by one. In an instant, it was as though he had filled the entire world. Everyone present, including Chun Hao, could not tell which one was the real Murong Qianhua for a moment. The moment all the figures disappeared, the entire sky suddenly fell into endless darkness. Immediately, numerous bright stars flashed out from the darkness and immediately streaked across the sky like meteors. No one knew where Murong Qianhua. Only the countless rays of resplendent starlight disappeared from everyone's eyes. Captain, God, this is the real stars. It's exactly the same as what I saw in the immortal realm. What a powerful footwork. Amazing. Too amazing. He is indeed the captain of the Starlight Battle Team. His unique way of leaving, his signature move, the origin of the Starlight Battle Team's name. How can a sparrow know the ambition of Swan? Fatty Li Yuan is a top genius, even in a top academy. I didn't expect him to be a sparrow who couldn't catch Murong Qianhua's attention. How much strength is he hiding? He is too strong. Buzzing discussions broke out among the crowd in the Daluo Golden Wonderland and the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm. Murong Qianhua seemed to have casually shown his skills, but it shocked everyone. Phew! Thank goodness, thank goodness. Brother Fatty, time is short, and I didn't have time to tell you the horror of the captain of the Starlight Battle Team. Fortunately, Murong Qianhua thought highly of himself and didn't accept your challenge. Otherwise, the consequences would be very serious. The captain of the Carnage Battle Team, Su Tao, and the others quickly came to Chun Hao's side and said, Yes, yes, Brother Fatty, let me say something. Don't be unhappy. Although you are very strong, Murong Qianhua is definitely not inferior to you. Under his leadership, the Starlight Battle Team is a legend in the Daluo Star in the illusory reality. The captain is the idol of countless people, Gong Chao said. The illusory reality was another name for the immortal realm. He is indeed a little strong. However, if you're promoted to the Supreme of Hongmeng, you will definitely be a little weaker than me. Chun Hao's chubby face was full of disdain. Unfortunately, no matter how one looked at it, it felt like he was just bragging. It couldn't be helped. Murong Qianhua's acting skills were more impressive than his strength. The aura he created was so strong that even Chun Hao felt that Murong Qianhua was not inferior to himself. He was indeed a proud and principled genius. Hello, sister. The only girl in the Carnage Battle Team, In Su Su, looked at Chun Si and greeted her. Si Xian nodded slightly and looked at Chun Hao with a questioning gaze. Until now, she didn't know what Chun Hao had experienced in the assessment square over the past few years. And from the looks of it, they seemed to be very familiar with Fatty. TSK. Hello, sister-in-law. I am Ao Qian. I hit it off with Brother Fatty at first sight. Now we are closer than brothers. Sister-in-law, do you have any sisters? If you don't, cousins are fine too. Please introduce me. However, before Chun Hao could introduce them, the skinny monkey, Ao Qian, appeared directly in front of the two of them like a ghost. He said with a flattering and shameless expression, TSK. Damn it, skinny monkey, you were talking about Brother Fatty. What surprised Si Xian, Chun Hao, Ao Qian, and the members of the Carnage Battle Team was that Ling Feng suddenly appeared and looked at Ao Qian with disdain. F***CK. Ao Qian glared. F***CK. Ling Feng said with disdain. As he spoke, he stroked his bangs and looked at Si Xian. Sister-in-law, Brother Fatty, and I hit it off at first sight. We have many similarities. If Brother Fatty wasn't so handsome, we would be the same person. I am ashamed. If sister-in-law has a sister like you can consider introducing her to Brother Fatty first. F***CK. Do you have any integrity? Ao Qian was angry. Integrity? What is that? How much is 500 grams? Ling Feng said with an evil eye. Shameless. Thank you for the compliment. Si Xian looked at the two people who were more shameless than the other and was speechless. However, she was surprised. She could clearly feel the strength of Ao Qian and Ling Feng. As soon as the two of them introduced themselves, Si Xian, who had come to see the pagoda monument, matched up with them. Ao Qian was ranked 4th, and Ling Feng was ranked 3rd. Si Xian, these are my friends. This is the captain of the Carnage Battle Team, Su Tao. These are the members of the Carnage Battle Team, Gong Chao, Guoda, Wang Chengfeng, and In Su Su. I don't know these two people who have no integrity and no integrity. Don't bother about them. Fatty glared at the two of them and said without giving them any face. Is that so? Fatty, why do I feel that you are the one who is birds of a feather flock together? Chapter 12:15. How is that possible? I'm such a pure person, but I'm completely different from them. F***CK, it can't be, right? Chun Hao, who was joking with Ling Feng, Ao Qian, and the others, suddenly shook the fat on his face. He stared at the cultivators around him. It couldn't be helped. Whether it was the fatty's abnormal talent, Si Xian's immortal appearance, or the appearance of the captain of the Starlight Squad, Murong Qianhua, they all made Chun Hao and Si Xian the focus of everyone's attention. Chun Hao, who disguised as a fatty, didn't have a face problem. Naturally, he didn't care about being surrounded by people. However, Si Xian was different. How could Chun Hao let Si Xian be surrounded by countless animals? Some people's gazes made Chun Hao's balls ache. However, there was no other way. The strength of the great world of CND made the people of the immortal Emperor realm much more abnormal than the people of ancient chaos. It should be known that in the grandest supremacy realm, even below the first 4 levels of cutting Tao True Immortal, there were very few people who really became Taoist companions. Basically, they were just in name or occupying a position. Those who really intertwined freely with yin and yang were definitely rookies who had exhausted their talent and potential. Under such circumstances, the men and women here naturally felt more strongly about the opposite sex than in ancient chaos. Moreover, the proportion of playful feelings was undoubtedly the largest under the 4th level of cutting Tao True Immortal. After the dispute between the Fatty and Murong Qianhua ended, the students of Dahua University swarmed over. Chun Hao was shocked. Aren't they too enthusiastic? Junior brother Ling Feng, hello. Brother Ling Feng, can we get to know each other? Junior brother Ao Qian. Brother Ao Qian, are you interested in joining our Pure Sun Squad? Junior brother Ling Feng, how about this sister show you around? Miss Een, hello. Junior sister Een Su, hello. Brother Su, hello. Handsome men and beautiful women. The Dahua Musicians Association welcomes you. After entering Musicians Association, you can hear the strongest voices in the world. Some are violent, some are gentle, some are full of killing intent, and some are pure spiritual enjoyment. Jade people played the flute, fairies played the zither. In short, you could find any sound you want to hear. Music associations, music complemented the Tao, and even entered the Tao through music. The great Tao of Sanskrit is a common occurrence. Handsome men and beautiful women, sign up quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Great Hua Painting and Calligraphy Association. Once you enter the Painting and Calligraphy Association, you will be able to see the world's most ancient calligraphy and paintings. Where do the runes and Tao marks originate from? The ancient inheritance of calligraphy and painting contained the origin and essence of rune Tao marks. This was the great Tao, the true great Tao. Did you see the words Daoyuo Jingxian at the top of the ranking tower? This is what our dean wrote. It doesn't contain any Tao marks. It is the most ancient calligraphy. Sense it carefully. What did you sense? Have you ever heard of a mysterious spell? Do you know about the evil curse? It was a kind of Tao that was in the Tao, but also beyond the Tao. It was the Tao of curse. Do you want to uncover its mysterious veil? Please join the Amplification Spell Association. If you don't want to die a wrongful death for no reason, come. What is the origin of battle skills? Where does the divine ability law originate from? If you want to have super powerful battle skills and display 200%, 300% for 100%, or even 500% of your battle strength, then join the Immortal Emperor's newest, hottest, and most promising research association, the Ancient Martial Arts Association. There's a kind of power that is different from the divine ability law. It surpasses the heavenly Tao and reincarnation. No matter if it is a space with abundant heaven and earth energy, or a world with scarce heaven and earth energy, a grain of sand, a speck of dust, can produce huge destructive power. It has many things and advantages that the divine ability law cannot do. It can become the greatest reliance for cultivators to increase their strength. It is called science. Join the Science Association and achieve the great Tao of perfection. Chun Hao and Si Xian, the 2 serious newcomers who knew very little about the Immortal Emperor's world, were immediately dumbfounded. Especially Chun Hao. He was so shocked that his fat body trembled. At the beginning, many cultivators who were obviously older students, men and women, were enthusiastic and unrestrained, as well as showing their goodwill to Ling Feng, Ao Qian, Su Tao, Yin Su, and the others. This was already very exaggerated, but the next group of people who wantonly spread the news shocked the two. It made Chun Hao feel like when he first entered a university on Earth. At that time, the senior brothers, sisters, and various student associations, weren't they fighting for people? But what really shocked Chun Hao was the content of these associations. Music Association, Calligraphy and Painting Association, Incantation Association, Ancient Martial Arts Association, Science and Technology Association, Music Association, and Calligraphy and Painting Association were still okay. The Sound Wave Divine Ability Law, Calligraphy, and Painting Runes, and other Tao marks were also cultivation methods in ancient chaos. It was just that they were not as clearly separated as here. But the Incantation Association, which involved ancient curses and was on par with fate and other mysterious things in the world, as well as the Ancient Martial Arts Association and Science and Technology Association that only existed on Earth, had actually appeared here. How could Chen Hao not be shocked? Sorry, I'm not a casual person. Don't surround me, make way. Ling Feng, who was surrounded by many women enthusiastically, thought that he was very suave, and he was indeed suave. He stroked the bangs on his forehead and swept his gaze across the women. As he spoke, he walked directly to the recruitment team of the International Musicians Association. Brother, my strongest skill is sound wave technique, and I usually don't use it. I'm a little interested in the International Musicians Association. What are the conditions? F***CK. It's obvious that he has taken a fancy to the beauties of the International Musicians Association. Bastard. A.O. Qian, who had arrived in front of the International Musicians Association at the same time, looked at Ling Feng, who had spoken before him, with disdain and cursed in his heart. In addition to the cultivators who were loudly promoting the International Musicians Association, there were more than 10 women with first-class looks, figures, and temperaments, as well as several handsome men. Moreover, they all had very strong auras. It was obvious that this was the International Musicians Association's facade, specially used to attract newcomers. Junior brother Ling Feng, although our conditions are harsh, there's no problem for you. You don't need to go through a 3-level interview. You can directly become a member of the International Musicians Association. Hello, Junior brother Ling, welcome to the International Musicians Association. The person in charge of recruitment of the International Musicians Association said excitedly to Ling Feng without even thinking about it. The gorgeously dressed beauties of the International Musicians Association had friendly and slightly charming expressions, expressing great interest in Ling Feng. Junior brother A.O. Qian, are you interested? You and junior brother Ling Feng are both top geniuses in this batch. Even in our Dahua College, you are definitely the top. Therefore, you don't need to go through an interview. The person in charge of recruitment looked at A.O. Qian and said, I'm interested. If there are no restrictions, I'll join. If there are restrictions on joining other associations, then it's up to me. A.O. Qian suddenly pointed at the fatty not far away. Chapter 12:16. Looking at Brother Fatty. Looking at me? The people from International Musicians Association, Ling Feng, Chun Hao, and the people from the Blood Carnage sect all looked at A.O. Qian. In the past few years in the assessment square, A.O. Qian had shown an extremely strong interest in the fatty. From the beginning to the end, he had called Chun Hao Brother Fatty. However, in the eyes of everyone, including Chun Hao, they did not think that a genius like A.O. Qian would really submit to someone else. At most, it was just a name. But now, A.O. Qian had actually said so. This was not as simple as just saying it. It was obvious that A.O. Qian really wanted to follow the fatty. Although A.O. Qian was ranked 4th in this batch of testers, it was because Chun Hao, Ling Feng, and Xue Fian had appeared. In fact, in the eyes of all the disciples of the University of Dahua, the 4 of them were definitely monstrous geniuses who were fighting for the top 10 of the Daluo Golden Wonderland. Who would really be convinced by them? However, A.O. Qian had actually publicly expressed his intention to follow Chun Hao in choosing an association. In fact, no matter the grade of the academy, the recruitment requirements of the various associations were not something that ordinary cultivators could join. Even the worst association would only recruit cultivators who were more outstanding in the academy or disciples who specialized in a certain aspect. Similarly, because of the competition between associations, many associations required that once a member joined, they could not join other associations. A.O. Qian was very clear about this. That was why he said such words. This fatty has such a strong charm. Ling Feng, Shui Fian, the people from the Blood Carnage sect, the cultivators from the International Musicians Association, and the surrounding cultivators, including one Ishui and the others who were hesitating, were all surprised. Especially Ling Feng. Fatty's talent is just a little stronger. In other aspects, especially his appearance and temperament. Cough cough. I still don't know what Fatty's true appearance is like. However, it's impossible for him to be more handsome than me. He's definitely not as good as me. Why didn't Ao Qian, this skinny monkey, follow me? Birds of a feather flock together. The three of us obviously have very similar natures. Ling Feng rubbed his chin and stared at Ao Qian. He despised Ao Qian for being blind. Ahem, junior brotherly Yuan, are you interested in joining the International Musicians Association? The cultivator in charge of recruitment hesitated for a moment before asking Chun Hao. For a monstrous genius like Fatty, any association would fight to get their hands on him. After all, he was the strongest participant in this batch of Daluo Golden Wonderland testers. Furthermore, he had achieved a result that was hard to come by in a million years. Any association that could get their hands on him would be glorious. However, due to the conflict between Fatty and Murong Qianhua, the cultivators in charge of recruitment from the various associations were in a dilemma. Murong Qianhua's influence as the captain of the Starlight Battle Team was too great. Yes, of course there was the International Musicians Association, Sound Wave Technique. I, Fatty, am a born sound wave genius. If I don't join your International Musicians Association, it will definitely be the loss of your International Musicians Association, Dahua College, Dahua Star, and even the great world of CND. Chun Hao rubbed his fists and rubbed his palms together as if he was very excited and awesome. Brother Fatty, we know you're awesome. Can you be a little more humble? The members of the Carnage Battle Team stared at each other. Ao Qian's face was full of admiration and excitement. F***CK, I'm telling the truth. What is this Fatty bragging about? Ling Feng secretly despised him. Si Xian frowned and didn't say anything. She didn't know what Chun Hao was going to do, but she knew that this damn Fatty seemed to be completely shameless. Although most of the cultivators knew that there was nothing that Fatty couldn't learn with his monstrous talent, Fatty's bragging was a little too much. Really? Then, that's great, that's great. Junior brotherly Yuan, you're the first in this test, and your test results are a rare heaven-defying result in Dahua College. You don't need a 3-level interview. The cultivator in charge of recruitment from the International Musicians Association had already decided to recruit Fatty, so he didn't hesitate and said directly, "Wait, I'm not done yet. Other than the International Musicians Association, I also want to join the Science and Technology Association." Everyone originally thought that since Fatty was working so hard and bragging so much, he naturally wanted to join the International Musicians Association because his sound wave talent was very strong. However, they didn't expect Fatty to say that again, which made many people frown. Someone from the Science and Technology Association, who was still hesitating whether to fight for Fatty, exclaimed, "Science and Technology Association, Science and Technology, I, Fatty, am a natural-born science and technology fanatic. If I don't join your Science and Technology Association, it will definitely be your Science and Technology Association, Dahua College, Dahua Star, and even the great world of CND's loss. Crash. F***CK. This Fatty is actually so shameless." It was almost the same as the International Musicians Association's words. It made the International Musicians Association, the Science and Technology Association, and the surrounding cultivators speechless. However, what was even more speechless was Ancient Martial Arts Association. Ancient Martial Arts, I, Fatty, am a natural-born ancient martial arts freak. If I don't join your Ancient Martial Arts Association, it will definitely be your Ancient Martial Arts Association, Dahua College, Dahua Star, and even the great world of CND's loss. Painting and Calligraphy Association. Painting and Calligraphy. I, Fatty, am a natural-born calligraphy and calligraphy talent. If I don't join your painting and calligraphy association, it will definitely be your painting and calligraphy association, Dahua College, Dahua Star, and even the great world of Xiandi's loss. Ling Feng was dumbfounded. He stroked his handsome bangs and froze in midair. He stared at Fatty, who had a big belly, clenched his fists, and spittle flying all over the sky. Si Xian, whose hand was held by Chun Hao, stood side by side. Her face was flushed red. She almost covered her face and told everyone that she didn't know this shameless Fatty. Brother, my dear brother, can you at least change your words? Even if we're bragging, we have to be more serious. Monkey Ao, Shi's eggs were shattered all over the ground. He regretted expressing his admiration and trust for Fatty in public just now. He was a model of having no moral integrity and no bottom line. He was really too shameless. Damn, Fatty, you're really shameless. Wan Yishui, who was still wondering if he should get back at him, cursed in his heart. Then he turned around and left. Such a shameless and powerful person. Who knew what would happen if he sparred with him in public? What if he was still inferior to him? Wan Yishui felt that he shouldn't lower himself to the same level as such a shameless person for the time being. Incantation Association. Fatty continued. However, just as Fatty finished talking about the Incantation Association, a voice rose from the crowd and suppressed Fatty. It continued Fatty's words. Incantation. I, Fatty, am a natural-born genius in incantation. If I don't join your Incantation Association, it will definitely be your Incantation Association. F*CK, who stole Lord Fatty's lines? Can you be more serious? What genius? Immortal genius. It should be immortal. Fatty, who was correcting the person, suddenly stopped. He stared in the direction of the voice and scratched his head awkwardly. Chapter 12:17. Hello, Teacher Tan. Teacher Tan, long time no see. In the crowd, many senior students of the Real Martial Arts Pavilion cupped their fists and saluted Tan Lin Hai, who suddenly appeared in the crowd. Tan Lin Hai was the teacher who brought Chun Hao and Si Xian from the Real Martial Arts City to the University of Dahua. Tan Lin Hai nodded slightly to the cultivators who saluted him. Without saying much, he walked towards the embarrassed Chun Hao with a smile on his face. Teacher Tan. At this moment, a woman's voice sounded softly. Tan Lin Hai suddenly stopped, looked to the side, and said, Yishui, why are you here? Oh, I know. You little girl. Hearing Tan Lin Hai's words, Wan Yishui suddenly blushed and lowered her head slightly. Fortunately, Tan Lin Hai did not say much and walked towards Chun Hao again. Little Fatty, the assessment results are unexpected. You flatter me, Teacher Tan. I knew you were not bad, but I still did not expect you to be so good. Not to mention me. Even the Pavilion Master did not expect it. Well, Chun-Si is also not bad. The Pavilion Master asked me to invite the two of you to come over and meet first. Tan Lin Hai stared at Chun Hao with bright eyes and said, Invite, very clearly, but without the slightest sarcasm. This was specially instructed by the Pavilion Master, and Tan Lin Hai was just conveying the Pavilion Master's intention. Even Tan Lin Hai did not expect this when he brought Chun Hao and Si Xian 7 years ago. At that time, he recommended Chun Hao to the Pavilion Master because Chun Hao did indeed have a strong talent and potential. Secondly, it was because of his old friend Du Minghui. And Du Minghui regarded Chun Hao as a junior of the vast Thousand Chaotic world, so he intended to help him. Who would have thought that he would pick up a heaven-defying monster? Little Fatty's heaven-defying results were far beyond Tan Lin Hai's expectations. Even 7 years ago, when the news that Little Fatty defeated the genius girl of the Real Martial Arts Pavilion, Wan Yishui, they did not expect him to be so heaven-defying. When he received the test results, the Pavilion Master of the Real Martial Arts Pavilion was shocked and immediately summoned Tan Lin Hai and asked him to bring Chun Hao and Si Xian to meet first. There was naturally a reason why he was in such a hurry to meet her. Chun Hao's assessment results, especially his potential value and combat strength value, would place him in the top ranks of the top academies. Even the top academies, Chun Hao was an existence that defied the heavens. Such a heaven-defying monster would inevitably cause the 10 great pavilions of Dahua Academy to fight over him. He might even attract the favor of some old fellows of Dahua Academy, who would care whether or not he was specially recruited by the true martial pavilion. They all belonged to the same academy, but when they encountered a true monstrous genius, the 10 great pavilions would definitely fight over him. Teacher Tan, there's no need to be so courteous. If the pavilion master wishes to see us, just summon us. We'll be there immediately, Chun Hao said hurriedly. Hearing Chun Hao's words, Tan Linhai smiled and nodded. He secretly praised this little fatty for being good at talking. That's good, Chi. Brother Tan, long time no see. Brother Tan, your speed is really fast. Just as Tan Linhai was about to leave with Chun Hao and Si Xian, several streams of light suddenly cut through the void and appear beside Tan Linhai and Chun Hao. One by one, they greeted Tan Linhai. Why are all of you here? Tan Linhai frowned slightly. Brother Tan, what are you saying? You can come, but we can't? Brother Tan. In this batch of assessment, apart from the direct disciples of Dahua Academy, there are 3 monstrous geniuses who can deter the top academies. How can our pavilion master not be tempted? Most of the teachers from the various pavilions and cultivators present knew who these 3 people were. The first was naturally the fatty Li Yuan, the second was naturally the narcissistic Ling Feng, and the third was the monkey Ao Qian. As for Xue Fian and Murong Qianhua, who ranked first in the Grand Miss Supremacy realm, they were direct disciples of Dahua Academy. They already belonged to someone else and were naturally not in the list of people fighting over them. The results of any of these 3 people would cause a sensation and be fought over in Dahua Academy. The various associations who were in charge of recruitment naturally stood aside at this time. The only thing they could do was to look at Fatty, Monkey, and Ling Feng with envy and jealousy. Li Yuan, right? Hello, I'm a teacher from Dahua Pavilion. Our pavilion master wants to meet you. Oh, and your cultivation partner, Chun Si. Ling Feng, right? Hello, our pavilion master also invites you to meet him. Ao Qian, right? Our pavilion master also wants to meet you. At this time, an old man who was full of confidence directly ignored Tan Linhai and the others. His bright eyes swept across Fatty, Ling Feng, and Monkey as he spoke with a smile. Dahua Pavilion, Dahua Planet, Dahua Academy, Dahua Pavilion. Just from the names alone, one could determine the status and strength of Dahua Pavilion among the 10 great pavilions. Li Yuan, Ling Feng, Ao Qian, our pavilion master also wants to meet you. Don't be in a hurry to sign the contract or something. It's not too late to make a decision at the Hall of Transformation in 6 hours. Another old man said directly without thinking. Although Tam Linhai was arranged by the pavilion master to come over at the first moment, he didn't expect that he was still a step late and didn't bring Chun Hao and Si Xin away in advance. Indeed, it was as the pavilion master had guessed. This time, the various great pavilions were all the first to make a move. Little brotherly Yuan, our pavilion master is especially interested in you. As for special recruitment, I hope that you will treat it seriously. It's not bad to be affectionate and righteous, but your own future is undoubtedly more important. It's all Dahua Academy. No matter what you choose, no one will blame you. Little brotherly Yuan, our Dahua Pavilion Master, is the strongest existence among the 10 great pavilions. He thinks highly of you and is prepared to accept you as his personal disciple, including your cultivation partner. Little brother Ling Feng, our Pavilion Master, is especially little brother Ao Chen. The competition on the surface had already caused the surrounding cultivators to be envious, jealous, and hateful. However, the teachers sent by the various great pavilions secretly transmitted messages to Chun Hao, Ling Feng, and Ao Qian. This caused the three's eyes to flicker nonstop, and they were stunned. Even Si Xian's expression slightly changed a few times. Clearly, someone was using Si Xian to deal with Fatty. Little Fatty, Tan Linhai looked at Fatty, whose expression was constantly changing, He seemed to be very excited and fascinated. No matter how he looked at it, Fatty didn't seem like someone who would sacrifice his own interests for the sake of friendship. Yes, Teacher Tan, let's go. Tan Lin Hai was slightly stunned. Hello, Teacher Tan. Since Brother Fatty wants to go with you, I will also go with you to meet the Pavilion Master of the true Martial Pavilion. The Pavilion Master won't look down on me, right? A.O. Chien, who was determined to follow Fatty, didn't hesitate to follow even though he had lost face due to Fatty's boasting just now. Moreover, it was under the circumstances that Tan Lin Hai didn't invite him. This caused the teachers from the other pavilions to be shocked and slightly unhappy. How could such a monstrous genius follow others blindly? Chapter 12:18. There was nothing wrong with Chun Hao and Si Xian following Tan Lin Hai to meet the Pavilion Master of the true Martial Pavilion. After all, both of them were specially recruited by the true Martial Pavilion. And now, A.O. Chien was going to the true Martial Pavilion because of Fatty. Where did the arrogance of a monstrous genius go? They had already made it clear that their respective pavilions valued Chun Hao, A.O. Chien, and Ling Feng. Even if the three of them went to the true Martial Pavilion, they might not really choose the true Martial Pavilion. However, meeting them before the official selection in the Great Hall would undoubtedly increase their chances. Little brother A.O. Chien, why wouldn't the Pavilion Master like you? That's exactly what he wants. Let's go. Tan Lin Hai said, slightly surprised. The true Martial Pavilion specially recruited Chun Hao. Although there was competition, the chances of him entering the true Martial Pavilion were undoubtedly the highest. After all, Chun Hao was from the true Martial City. Moreover, although the various pavilions were vying for him, the conditions that they could offer were very limited. At most, they could offer him the position of a personal disciple, a successor, and so on. Therefore, the real deciding factor was the comprehensive consideration of the various pavilions' strength, cultivation direction, and other factors. Therefore, because the Pavilion Master of the true Martial Pavilion had one of the three great geniuses, and the strongest one at that, he did not let Tan Lin Hai invite Ling Feng and A.O. Chien. Otherwise, it would be too overboard. Ishue, since you're back, come with me to meet the Pavilion Master. Let's go. Oh, swish. Tan Lin Hai did not hesitate any longer. He directly led the confused one, Ishue, Chun Hao, Si Xian, and A.O. Chien into the air. Fatty monkey weight. Swish. Since all of you are going to the true Martial Pavilion, it's too boring for me to go alone. What everyone did not expect was that Ling Feng, who was frowning and looking at A.O. Chien with disdain, actually chased after them when he saw that the two of them were going to follow Tan Lin Hai to the true Martial Pavilion. It can't be. The three great geniuses, just the three great geniuses are actually so close? This is too abnormal, right? Yes, under normal circumstances, isn't it difficult for two tigers to live on one mountain? For top monsters like them, even if they aren't enemies, it's normal for them to be the strongest competitors. This time, all the cultivators present were puzzled. Brother Fatty, Brother Monkey, Teacher Tan, can we go visit the true Martial Pavilion? Junior Su Tao, we're from the same team as Li Yuanjun, so we're not bad. Of course, welcome to the true Martial Pavilion, Tan Lin Hai said with a bit of happiness and excitement. Three monstrous geniuses had followed him at the same time. Although they didn't choose the true Martial Pavilion in the end, the effect was immediate. The aura of the people following them wasn't bad either. Furthermore, it was obvious that they had followed Fatty and A.O. Chien. No one was surprised that someone from the Carnage Battle team would do such a thing. A true monstrous genius would undoubtedly have many followers. It was just like when Murong Qianhua revealed that he was the captain of the Starlight Battle team. From Chun Hao and Si Xian to A.O. Chien and Ling Feng, the two monstrous geniuses, and then to Qi Shui's group of five. Tan Lin Hai's group was almost there. Moreover, under Tan Lin Hai's lead, they quickly left the area. However, Teacher Tan, I want to take a look at the true Martial Pavilion, too. What? Is Shui Fian from the true Martial Pavilion? Such a monstrous woman. She must have been groomed by a big shot from the 10 great pavilions. No one expected Shui to jump into the air and chase after them. Shui, a direct descendant of the University of Dahua, was the monstrous woman whose results were the closest to Fatty's in this assessment. Before she came out from the assessment square, she was undoubtedly the most anticipated candidate of the older students. She even surpassed Fatty, who was in first place. However, after she appeared, she disappointed everyone. The reason was simple. She didn't have an original body. Even though many people coveted her heaven-defying talent, they only thought about it in their hearts. Everyone knew that she was a monstrous genius who had been occupied. However, at this moment, Shui, who had disguised her appearance and aura and was in second place, but was excluded from the competition because of her identity as a direct descendant, was actually going to the true martial pavilion. How could a direct descendant have a right to choose? One explanation was that Shui was a prodigy groomed by a reclusive big shot from the true martial pavilion, or she was occupied by a big shot from the true martial pavilion. Another possibility was that the big shot who groomed Shui didn't belong to any pavilion, or he was a reclusive big shot from a higher position than the pavilion master of any pavilion. If this was the case, Shui had a right to choose. This possibility was the most likely in the minds of the teachers who came to compete for the monstrous genius. Miss Shui, Tanlin Hai, who was standing in the air, frowned as he looked at Shui, who had caught up to him. Teacher Tan, you can call me by my name. All right, Shui, are you a direct descendant of the true martial pavilion, or I have the right to choose? Shui smiled. It was supposed to be a charming smile, but unfortunately, it didn't look beautiful on her face at all. Only Fatty, Ling Feng, Ao Qian, and the others who had seen Shui real face could imagine it. Of course, Chen Hao could also see it now. However, Chen Hao wasn't that shameless, and he didn't have that kind of hobby. As expected, all right, we welcome you to the true martial pavilion. Let's go. Chi chi chi. Tan Lin Hai was excited, and he led the group forward quickly. Wan Yishui, who was also following behind Tan Lin Hai, glared at the Fatty from time to time. Her limpid eyes seemed to have set off waves of clear blue waves. What was even more detestable was that the damn Fatty, who had two different appearances in front of him and behind him, completely ignored his existence. Hello, senior sister Shui. I'm Ao Qian. Nice to meet you. If there's a chance, I'd like to see senior sisters by. Hello, Miss Yishui. I'm Ling Feng. It's my fortune to meet Miss Yishui. Miss Yishui, Meidai Chunshan, Autumn Water Eyes. Before Ao Qian could finish speaking, Ling Feng stroked his bangs and stepped in front of the skinny Ao Qian. It could be said that he had inserted himself between Ao Qian and Wan Yishui as he spoke. F*CK. Ao Qian, who was dressed like an earthling, immediately raised his middle finger and pointed it at Ling Feng's back to show his disdain. Then, his figure flashed, and he gave Ling Feng a taste of his own medicine. He stood between Ling Feng and Wan Yishui and said again, Senior sister Shui, Buddha said that the 500 glances of the previous life were exchanged for the brushing of shoulders in this life. And now, we're fated to meet, even, that's exchanged for millions, billions, or even trillions of glances. In the vast sea of people for eternity. Monkey, you didn't do anything in your previous life, and you just look back? Ha ha! Ling Feng laughed. Chapter 1219. F*CK. Description, metaphor, understand? Monkey's face turned red, expressing his strong disdain for Ling Feng. How could this guy do whatever he saw him do, and even do it against him? Cheap. In the vast sea of people, there is only one sigh. What is love? It makes people live and die together. The world of mortals is turbulent, destined for 3 lives. Looking back, that person is in the waning light. Miss Yishui, Ling Feng ignored Ao Qian's roar and continued Ao Qian's words, gazing affectionately at Wan Yishui. It was a pity scram. Wan Yishui could not bear it anymore. Wan Yishui, who was already glaring at Ao, Qian, and Ling Feng, turned redder and redder. She had seen shameless people, but she had never seen such shameless people. What was this if not flirting in front of everyone? And it was in front of teacher Tanlin Hai. What was even more outrageous was that the two of them, whether it was Ao, Qian, or Ling Feng, completely ignored her gradually angry expression and glare. At this time, Uncle could endure, Aunt could not endure, and there was no need to endure. Ugh! Ling Feng, who thought that he was extremely handsome, was suddenly stunned by Wan Yishui's simple and crude scram. How could he pinch her like this? How could he pinch her like this? His brother was handsome and elegant, and his demeanor was peerless. To praise a young girl in public like this, even if she did not throw herself in his arms, she should be secretly happy. How could there be a mistake? This was simply a joke. Ha ha! Senior sister Shui, well scolded, well scolded. Big brother, I am most disgusted by this kind of person who is more handsome than me, but still wants to show off, huh? You scram too, huh? Ao Qian's complacent laughter suddenly stopped. None of you are good. Shameless, shameless. Don't think that all the women in the world should revolve around you just because your talent is stronger. Humph. And you, damn fatty, don't think that you can pretend not to know me in front of your Tao companion. Sooner or later, I will settle the score with you. The sanctimonious fatty, who was secretly laughing, did not expect Wan Yishui to take advantage of the situation and point the spearhead at him. He pretended to be surprised and cried out, revealing a look of panic. He hid behind Si Xian and said, Senior Sister Yishui, we are just fighting in the arena. What do you want? I have a Tao companion. The all-purpose water was choked. It looked like she was going to do something to him. Not to mention that she wasn't a tomboy. Even if she was, she wouldn't be blind, right? No matter how talented he was just an ugly fatty. She had no interest in a fatty, let alone a person with a Tao companion. Youngsters these days, Tanlin Hai, who was enveloping everyone with his divine ability laws and energy, sighed inwardly. However, he pretended not to notice and did not get involved. The only feeling he had was that he was old and that there was a huge generation gap. In other words, these geniuses were too unique. What's going on? Si Xian, who didn't know what was going on but was being used as a shield, asked Chun-Hao telepathically. Fatty briefly introduced Wan Yishui to Si Xian. However, this guy naturally wouldn't introduce the so-called but divine technique. Therefore, in Si Xian's opinion, Wan Yishui was just unwilling to admit defeat after being tortured by Fatty. Wan Yishui held back for a long time before finally saying, When I said settle the score, I meant to challenge you. I'm not blind. Why would I fall for you? There's no need to explain. Any explanation is a cover-up. CC, I'm not trying to pick a fight, but I can't stand it. She said you're blind. F***CK. Idle. Monkey's eyes widened. F***CK. Isn't Brother Fatty too shameless? In Susu, the only female member of the Carnage Blood sect, was stunned. So wretched, Ling Feng and the other members of the Carnage Blood sect, as well as Xue Fian, who also came over but was like a statue and didn't even make eye contact with them, all thought to themselves, Ew. Miss Chen-Si, I didn't mean that. Wan Yishui was defeated by Fatty once again and had no choice but to say this to Chen-Si. Her personality and temper were originally very good. She didn't dare to say that she lived up to her name, but she definitely wasn't the kind of person who would offend people easily. Even if Chen-Si was Fatty's Tao companion in name, she still didn't want to offend her. It's all right. Don't lower yourself to his level. His shameless skills of pestering people are not something that women like us can compare to. Si Xian smiled slightly and shook her head. Thank you. Wan Yishui was attracted by Si Xian's beauty and temperament. After a moment of surprise, he calmed down and nodded slightly. We're here. This is the mountain gate of the true martial pavilion. At this moment, Tan Linhai suddenly said. His voice seemed to carry a subtle emotion. At the same time, he deliberately pointed at the mountain gate in the distance to attract everyone's attention. Looking up, a huge mountain gate appeared in front of everyone's eyes. It was like a towering mountain that covered the sky and blocked all the scenery. The only thing that could be seen was the majestic, and ancient pure gold mountain gate. The most eye-catching thing was above the mountain gate. It seemed to be engraved in the void with two large golden words, True Martial. Riding like dragons and snakes, the power penetrates the heavens. Boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. The instant they saw the two words True Martial that seemed to be written between the heavens and the earth, other than Wan Yishui, the senior, Chun Hao, Si Xian, Ao, Qian, Ling Feng, the members of the Carnage Battle Squad, and even the genius of the direct line of descent of the University of Dahua, Xue Fian, all had a loud sound in their minds. Their entire minds were directly integrated into the profound meaning of the two words True Martial. Yishui. While Wan Yishui was staring at Fatty Chan Hao, Xue Fian, Ling Feng, Ao, Qian, Si Xian, and the others, secretly estimating how long it would take for them to jump out of the oppressive illusion of the two words True Martial, Tan Linhai suddenly transmitted his voice. Teacher Tan, what's wrong? Wan Yishui hurriedly replied. The pavilion master asked you to come with the little fatty and his Taoist companion. Perhaps there's a deeper meaning. You should know that the pavilion master is a true immortal king and has awakened many supernatural abilities. Teacher Tan, what do you mean? The pavilion master naturally won't tell me the details, let alone you. However, I'm guessing that the luck of the little fatty and the others has crossed paths. The little fatty, Ling Feng, and Ao Qian are all monstrous geniuses of the University of Dahua. Together with Xue Fian, the four of them have the potential to become the top 10 experts of the Daluo Golden Wonderland. Compared to them, you're still lacking by a bit. Perhaps this is an opportunity for you. Moreover, to tell you the truth, even the pavilion master can't completely see through the little fatty. When Chun Hao was recommended to the pavilion master of the True Martial Pavilion, the pavilion master of the True Martial Pavilion was naturally aware of everything. Furthermore, before Chun Hao and Si Xian were brought to the assessment square by Tan Linhai, the pavilion master of the True Martial Pavilion had already secretly sized them up and knew that Fatty had hidden quite a lot. However, Fatty's current performance had completely exceeded the pavilion master's expectations. Chapter 1221. It can't be. Wan Yishui was shocked. How sacred was the pavilion master? How could a super expert at the true immortal king realm, who had awakened many special abilities, be unable to see through the little fatty completely? But Wan Yishui knew that Tan Linhai would not lie to her. Tan Linhai continued, "That's the truth. Originally, the pavilion master only invited little fatty and his cultivation partner to negotiate in advance so that they would know. After all, with little fatty's talent, the other pavilions would not care whether he was specially recruited by us or not. Who would have thought that Ao Qian, Ling Feng, and Xue Fian would come too? It's a little strange. After all, the True Martial Pavilion is much weaker than the Great Transformation Pavilion. Xue Fian is a direct descendant of the Great Transformation Pavilion, and she has the right to choose. This means that her retired master must be a high-level figure in the Great Transformation Pavilion. There is no reason for her not to choose the strongest and the one that represents the Great Transformation Pavilion. It seems that little fatty is more or less the reason. And Ling Feng and Ao Qian showed enough interest in you just now. Teacher Tan, what kind of interest is that? It's obviously teasing. Haha, Yishui, you can't think like that. Why didn't they tease Xue Fian? Men, no matter what method or nature, as long as they express abnormal words to you, it proves that they are interested in you. There seems to be something between you and little fatty. I don't need you to answer. Actually, what I really want to tell you is, grab the opportunity for yourself, including little fatty. Grab one of the three, and your future will be even brighter. So, being able to keep them in the True Martial Pavilion is undoubtedly the best. Teacher Tan, I understand. Thank you. Cough. Yishui, Tan Linhai was embarrassed. He did not expect Wan Yishui to be so smart and say what he wanted to say directly. This made him very embarrassed. After all, he did say this for Wan Yishui's sake, although more importantly for the true martial pavilion. Teacher Tan, you don't have to say anymore. I know what to do, and I know that you are doing this for my own good. Wan Yishui smiled as if she really did not have any other thoughts. That's good. I won't ask you for anything. It's all up to you. I'm just telling you that there is such a thing. Even if you don't do anything, it's fine. I hope you understand this, and don't blame teacher in your heart. Tan Linhai shook his head and said frankly, No. Teacher Tan, are monstrous geniuses really that important? Wan Yishui asked. Yes. That was true in the past, and even more so now. Even more now. Yes. In the past 1,000 years, many of the main cities on the 3,000 main planets of the great world of CND have produced monstrous geniuses that are hard to come by in 1,000,000 years. Moreover, most of them are outsiders like Little Fatty, Ling Feng, and Ao Qian. Most of them are from the Daluo Golden Wonderland, and some from the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm. Such a grand occasion undoubtedly indicates the arrival of another grand occasion in the great world of CND. Little Fatty, Shuefian, Ling Feng, Ao Qian, and Murong Qianhua from the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm are undoubtedly the new monstrous geniuses that are hard to come by in 1,000,000 years in our university. They might have the opportunity to become one of the trendsetters of this era, and they woke up. Just as Wan Yishui was shocked by Tan Linhai's words, Tan Linhai suddenly exited the sound transmission state with her and asked in surprise. Phew, Shuefian, who had disguised her appearance and aura to appear extremely ordinary, heaved a long sigh of relief. The moment she opened her dull eyes, 2 dazzling rays of light blossomed from them. Like 2 sharp swords, they cut through the profound meaning of the 2 words true martial out of thin air. The world regained its color in her eyes. Amazing! Shuefian, I didn't expect you to break free from the profound meaning of the true martial pavilion so quickly. 3 minutes and 49 seconds. This is the fastest record since the establishment of the true martial pavilion. At this moment, Tan Linhai was slightly taken aback and exclaimed in surprise. What a profound pressure illusion. The moment Si Xian opened her eyes, she muttered to herself. Immediately, Si Xian discovered that teacher Tan Linhai, Wan Yishui, and Shuefian were all looking at her in surprise. However, Chun Hao and the others' eyes were tightly shut. Obviously, they had not woken up yet. The 3 of them were indeed surprised. For Tan Linhai and Wan Yishui, they were surprised that Shuefian was the first to wake up because of how quickly she broke the record, not because she was the first to wake up. Although the profound meaning of the true martial entry could be considered a test, it was only a test in one aspect. It could not completely reflect one's talent, potential, and strength. However, just as Tan Linhai finished speaking, Chun Si was the second to wake up in just a few seconds. This was completely out of their expectations. The profound meaning of the true martial entry was based on one's realm. Si Xian, who was in the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm, encountered the profound meaning of the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm. She was no less relaxed than the people in the Daluo Golden Wonderland. However, Si Xian was faster than Chun Hao, Ling Feng, Ao Qian, and the others. How is this possible? It seems that Chun Si is not as simple as she seems. At this moment, Tan Linhai, Wan Yishui, and Shuefian's opinions of Chun Si changed again. Phew, the true martial entry test? That's pretty simple, cough cough. Ling Feng, who was the closest to Si Xian, suddenly opened her eyes and spoke. However, she only spoke a few sentences before she looked at Shuefian and Si Xian in astonishment, especially Si Xian. Ao Qian immediately woke up as well. No way, this should be the true martial pavilion's entry test, right? Could it be that Fat Bro's compatibility with the true martial pavilion's inheritance is too poor? Ao Qian said directly when he saw that Shuefian, Ling Feng, and Si Xian had all woken up, but Fatty had not. Obviously, In his opinion, there was no reason for Fatty to be surpassed by them. No, definitely not. You guys got rid of it too quickly. It's normal for you to wake up in 15 minutes. It's only been 5 minutes. Oh? That's right. They haven't woken up yet. That's easy to understand. Fat Bro was comprehending, not getting rid of it. Yes, that must be it. Otherwise, how could Fat Bro lose to someone? Ao Chien deliberately imitated Fatty's actions and stroked his forehead. Unfortunately, the trader's short hair did not have Fatty's style at all. Huh! Ling Feng laughed and stroked his hair again, saying, "What's so strange about Fatty losing to Big Bro? Big Bro, I have many powerful trump cards that I haven't revealed yet. Just because your results are better than Big Bro, you're better than Big Bro in everything? Naive child, go back and study properly before coming out to mingle. F***CK. Arrogant fellow, who are you talking about? Who's talking about Big Bro? Big Bro is talking about that. Do you have a problem with that? If you have a problem with it, then challenge Big Bro. The bet is to break your arm, break your leg, or cut off your penis." Chapter 1222. F***CK. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Just you wait. Once we're done here, I'll turn you into a pig's head. Ao Qian's face turned red. He wanted to fight with Ling Feng immediately, but he had to endure it. Firstly, this was not the time for a challenge. Secondly, Ao Qian did not have the slightest confidence that he could defeat Ling Feng. What else could he do? Okay, I'll wait for you. Let's see who will turn into a pig's head. Ha ha ha. Ling Feng laughed arrogantly with his hands behind his back. Ao Qian snorted coldly, not showing any weakness. Everyone was speechless. Everyone could see that Ao Qian admired Fatty, but he did not like Ling Feng. He did not care about him at all, even though Ling Feng's test results were slightly higher than his. Ling Feng, on the other hand, did not respect anyone. Otherwise, he would not call Fatty Chun Hao. He even called Ao Qian Chun Hao and the other's brother. However, no matter how much they disdained each other and even challenged each other to a battle, they did not give off the feeling of enmity. Su Tao, Gong Chao, Guoda, Wang Chengfeng, and Yin Susu were the 5 members of the Carnage battle team. Although they were not as outstanding as Chun Hao, Xue Fian, Ling Feng, and Ao Qian, they were still outstanding. At the 12th minute, they woke up one after another. Only Fatty was left. Could it be that he's really comprehending? Everyone began to suspect. After all, Fatty's terrifying test results were definitely strong in all aspects. He should not have been unable to break free from the illusion of true martial entry for so long. Looking at everyone's gaze, Si Xian, who was holding Chun Hao's hand, nodded slightly to everyone awkwardly as an apology. Then, she directly sent a wisp of energy into Chun Hao's hand. This was something that could not be helped. The pavilion master of the true martial pavilion had summoned them, and they had to gather at the large hall later. How much time could they have? However, Fatty was comprehending the true martial entry profound meaning at this time. Si Xian could only wake him up. "Ah, you're all done?" Fatty's body trembled, and he suddenly opened his eyes. He looked at Si Xian and the others in surprise. "It's all done. Little Fatty, if you want to comprehend it, you'll have plenty of opportunities after joining the true martial pavilion. This is just the basic, profound meaning of the true martial pavilion. How is it? Does it feel good?" Tan Lin Hai asked with a faint smile. He didn't blame Fatty for not choosing the right time. On the contrary, from his point of view, Fatty's carefree nature as a martial arts fanatic was perhaps the root of his monstrous talent. Also, the basic profound of the true martial pavilion must be very attractive to Fatty. Otherwise, why would he enter a state of comprehension? This, Teacher Tan, I didn't comprehend it at all. I just felt comfortable like. Chen Hao looked at Wan Yishui and said, "Your Azure Silk Jade Ripple technique originated from here, right? You felt it," Wan Yishui said in surprise. "Amazing." Tan Lin Hai also showed a surprised expression. What did it mean to feel comfortable without comprehending anything? That was the pressure of the true martial pavilion's basic profound. To little Fatty, it was like the surrounding air, completely unable to affect his heart. Only this way could he directly immerse himself in the profound of the Tao Mark profound. In other words, little Fatty didn't enter the illusory realm of the Tao Mark profound at all. Everyone was drunk, and he was the only one sober, transcending the illusory realm. Just this alone was already very amazing. But what was even more amazing was that he could actually sense the profound contained within the profound. Juan Ishue had spent several years comprehending the azure silk jade ripple technique. Damn, Fatty bro, can you not be so monstrous? A.O. Chien said with an exaggerated expression. Damn, Fatty, if you're not amazing, will you sh*t? Ling Feng stroked his bangs and stared at Fatty. How could such a coquettish performance fall on Fatty every time? Unhappy. But even though he was unhappy, Fatty's performance made Ling Feng feel more and more helpless. Monstrous. Xue Fian's eyes flickered. Like everyone else, she could only use this word to describe Fatty's monstrous talent. After a short interlude, under Tan Lin Hai's lead, everyone arrived at the core of the true martial pavilion, the true martial peak. It was also the tallest and largest peak of the true martial pavilion. The palace at the peak was the pavilion master's palace. Tan Lin Hai brought everyone to the middle of the mountain and landed on a platform. This is the peak ascension platform. We can only fly up to here. If we want to go up, we have to walk. The steps are densely packed with Tao marks. Even if they aren't activated, it will have a huge impact on cultivators. When activated, it will be difficult for cultivators to reach the peak. This is known as the true martial path in our true martial pavilion. Tan Lin Hai turned around and introduced to everyone. The reason why it's called this is because this peak ascension platform contains the Tao marks of our true martial pavilion's strongest divine ability law. It's activated once every 100 years, and it lasts for 3 years each time. Once activated, all the disciples of the true martial pavilion can come here to cultivate. The disciples of the other 9 pavilions must be the chief disciples of their respective pavilions of the same cultivation level. To put it bluntly, only 9 people can come here. Everyone was a little surprised, especially Chan Hao, Si Xian, and the 5 members of the Carnage Battle team. They were looking around excitedly. Rising clouds in one's chest, that's it. Below them, there were mountains surrounded by auspicious clouds. Above them, there were simple and unadorned steps that led to the peak of the mountain. The steps were densely packed with runes and surrounded by divine light. Around them, pure and thick heaven and earth spirit chi filled the air. Every breath was filled with boundless heaven and earth spirit chi. This was definitely a paradise on earth. Even Juan Ishue, who had been here before, was slightly excited. Not to mention Chun Hao and Si Xian, who had just arrived at the great world of CND and did not have much experience. This was just the entrance to the Pavilion Master's Palace. What about inside the palace? What about the Dean of the University of Dawa? What about the top universities? Chun Hao and Si Xian could not imagine. For such a powerful celestial mountain holy land, firstly, the expert who condensed it was not to be underestimated. Secondly, it was nourished by the heaven and earth spirit chi for billions of years. Thirdly, it was tempered by thousands of years of luck. Fourthly, it was continuously tempered by generations of masters. This was definitely not something that the great 1,000 worlds of ancient chaos could have. At least, it was impossible in a short period of time. Not to mention other things, at least the prototype runes were not something that Yilan and the others could refine. Similarly, it was impossible without the accumulation of time. However, Xue Fian, Ling Feng, and A.O. Qian were much calmer. They did not seem to feel much about the celestial mountain holy land. At most, they were curious about the true martial profundity that it contained. Obviously, such a celestial mountain holy land was not a powerful place for the 3 of them. I forgot to publish it after uploading it yesterday. Sorry. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.